Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Starbase Weekly. This is episode 76, and my name is Mauricio, and I'll pass this along to Indian Star.
Woot woot, 76 kids. Can you believe it? I can't even believe it. We have flyover photos for you, we have ground images for you, and we have them from yesterday. How good can Mauricio be? I don't know. Dave, why don't you take it away?
And good day, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, whatever today. Welcome, everybody. We have lots and lots and lots of photos today. A little bit of cloudiness in them, as we can see from the opening shot, and I will pass it to Thomas.
Thank you, Dave. And Mauricio, you definitely outdid yourself on the flyovers and ground shots. They are absolutely amazing. So there's only a few bits of clouds here and there. This is just the first picture of the lot, but the rest of them are pretty cloud free for the most part. So it's really cool to go through and dive in all this. So let's do it. First off, the big item on the list we'll start with Massey's, is the embeds have finally been placed with rebar and formwork, as we have talked about before. And this is the thing that we always were actually asking about as well. It's like, why is there this like jog out in the middle of this area? And with the formwork is now confirming that it is a jog. Dave, did you actually have an opinion on what this would be for?
Yeah, I think that's where the QD is going to get mounted.
Yeah, we kind of had that idea at the beginning too, but it's a weird one.
And if we slide up a little bit, we will see the QD just waiting there to get mounted.
Yep. It's got the perfect frame as well. So it's the QD frame, not the actual QD itself.
Right.
But it's a larger frame, bigger than the one for the Starship. So that was something we've been talking about for a while, but it always has to get mentioned again until like you kind of just go, oh yeah, this one's thinner, smaller. This one's larger, wider. Typically is another way to look at it. And then you had a really good description of what this part is,
so
and how that works.
That looks to me, and it looks to a couple other people that were at the show and tell last night, that's going to be a catwalk that goes around the large top of the QD mount. And if you look right above it, there are 2 sets of railings to make it a safe catwalk.
Oh, perfect. I was wondering where you talked about railings yesterday, and I was like, "Oh, they're next to it." I thought
Oh,
they were going to be on it, but no, they're
no,
right
yeah,
there.
they haven't. The welders haven't gotten that far yet. And one of the ways you can tell this is a booster QD is the booster QD mounts horizontally, so this frame is wider than it is taller, where it goes out towards the ship, which makes it pretty obviously a booster QD mount.
Yeah,
Dave, you said it's wider than it is taller?
Yes. The frame, the part where the QD mounts, not the whole apparatus, but
see.
just the top
Gotcha.
piece. Because the
That makes
booster
sense.
QD is like twice as wide as it is tall, and the Starship QD is taller than it is wide.
Yeah, so you're just using this kind of section in here to kind of tell that one, the tall versus wide part.
Yep.
It is very wide. But yeah, that is really interesting to go through and see like all of this coming together so quickly. Um, we talked a little bit about the rebar and how they're putting all of this together. You obviously have some little strings going on here. That's rebar, and it does flex, so it does bend towards gravity. Um, Dave, we were talking last night about exactly how they were putting this
Well, so
together as far as the
if you
mat.
zoom in a little on the mat, so it fills the screen. If you look at the 2 layers, you'll see the bottom layer of the mat is a grid. But if you look like along the top edge there, the top layer of the mat mostly only has rebar running up and to the right. The rebars that would run crossways down towards the left are not all in place yet, and that's what the big pile of rebar down in the bottom right hand corner is going to be. Is it's real easy to pull rebar down its length. It's much harder to walk it and pick it up and carry it sideways, so they tend to pre-stack it on the ground in both directions if they can.
Yes,
And I
to see
see,
what you're talking about, you have to look really kind of in these shadows here to
yeah.
see that rebar, because otherwise you're seeing it all here. But it's in the shadows that you're mentioning, basically.
Well, it's either there or up on the very top edge where you can see through the top layer. Yep, all along there. Right, they haven't put the cross pieces in except for the very end one. But
But
yep,
it is interesting because like you can't really even tell that there was a top piece until you kind of mention that this is not the bottom layer, but at the top layer is already being put in place, and so by Monday this should be pretty much filled with rebar.
yeah. And then they got to finish putting the forms around the other 2 sides, and then it's time for the line of concrete trucks. They've actually got, if you pull out a little bit, they got 4 more embeds to stick in there. They have not quite finished. If you go to the left, over by right there are 4 more embeds just waiting to get lifted into place by that blue and white crane up in the right hand corner. And once those are in place, then rebar finished, forms finished, and this thing will be ready for lots and lots of concrete trucks.
Yeah, what's really neat is that you can tell like this is the booster pad as well. And another way is you have these sets of basically it's a total of 8 right now. With the 4 will go in basically perpendicular directions in between these. That's going to be for the booster transport stand. But we also talked about what these are and how they might relate to it. So what's going on with these?
That's a good question. I'm still not sold on what those are. They could be more mounts for things like puck chucking cylinders or something, but this could also be unrelated to this pad because there's other construction going on in this area. So they could just be using this as a construction area, especially that hexagonal plate they have sitting there, which it's interesting. I'll put it that way.
I mean the biggest giveaway for me on these is that there's 12 of them, 12 of these larger plates and 12 of these smaller plates. I do wonder if these have something to do with the embeds themselves. So these larger ones, easily could be with the top of the embeds and being with the rest of it. The smaller ones, that's the one I'm having a harder time figuring out. Maybe they come in pairs or something, and they go with the 6 here, so it might go towards the center. I think this does have something to do with being in the center as well. So it's another form of being the embeds. Um, there's something very similar to this on the inside of the can crusher, so you can't see it right now. but the can crusher basically has a little hexagon, and it's not nearly as big, I think, as this one is. But basically, it provides a nice stable base, and the idea is that you're transferring loads all the way through from the top all the way down to the bottom. If you're going to be doing anything, let's say with puck shucking with a can crusher over there, or anything else that basically needs to transfer loads directly through into the concrete.
Yeah,
But
this
yeah,
is gonna be quite the pad as they finish it. I predict at the rate we're going, by next week, it'll be formed and there will be concrete inside it for the next flyover. If it takes a week for the next flyover.
yeah. I mean, I think Mauricio, what was your current estimated date you would be expecting to do the next flyover? Was it? It was pretty soon this week, right?
Probably on Tuesday, but it's all weather dependent. Backup date is on Wednesday, and we have Thursday as well for backup. So we have pretty good opportunities. And yeah, by the time we fly, probably already going to be covered in concrete.
or just starting. I mean, that's pretty close. But like Tuesday, let's see, yeah, Tuesday would they be probably pouring concrete with this because they're going so quick with the rebar here. Yeah, Tuesday would be like concrete day, so
Yeah,
we'll see them halfway doing it.
if you compare what this looked like a week ago, yeah, it's really moving fast. And if you pull out a little bit with this image, you'll also see that they are starting to run the cryo lines to this pad already. They don't even have concrete in, and the pipe fitters are running cryo lines from that tee.
Yeah, that's one of these things we've been looking at forever. That this would be it was going to be a booster pad. We already knew this was a ship cryo pad. Like when it first came in, we're like, oh, they're doing one right here. We're hoping for a second one for the booster, and they started working on that a little bit later, and then they buried it, and we're like, oh, come on, let's open it back up and see what it looks like and get some booster pads in there, and that's what they did. Just took them a little while, but now they're pretty much ready within a couple of weeks because it needs to cure, take some time to cure. So maybe 4 weeks from now, we'll have a booster sitting here doing cryo, or hopefully
Yeah,
a little bit later than that. But yeah,
no, I would. 4 weeks is certainly viable. I mean, the pad should be ready for a booster by then. Whether the plumbing and everything else is, I don't know. But at the rate they seem to have some plumbing pre-staged right there behind that little comm hut. I think it could, as soon as the concrete's in, I think they could have the plumbing up to the QD bracket already.
speaking of huts, we had a little bit of a game yesterday trying to like count all of these. There's at least I counted 9 of these, and the problem is you see these kinds of objects. They're like, is that a comm hut? No, that's just a trailer. But there is tons of these. They use them everywhere. They have them up here. They have them over. Let's see, where was the other ones? Oh, they're all in the clouds now. But like these guys right in here.
Well, if you slide over to the left a little bit, at the very edge of the image, there's a crane picking one up by the tank on the upper corner there, because we got to have another comm hut somewhere.
Let me go back to that first image because I think that shows it a little bit better. But there's clouds in the left and the right.
The first image, it's still on the trailer.
Oh, good point. But yeah, it's going right there. So it's probably to help control the rest of the system. That's kind of what these comm huts seem to be typically for, is for a bit of communications and a bit of power distribution. Well, actually, not power distribution. That's what these guys are for.
The big thing is put electronics in them, and they have air conditioning on them so they don't get baked in the Texas sun.
Do they get used as offices typically, do you think?
I don't think so. I think they're truly comm huts.
It's just
computer equipment and data comm. Yeah.
Pretty barren on the inside then.
Yep. They're just four empty walls and a power panel, and that's usually what they are. I mean, this comes from we call them comm huts because this comes from the telecommunications industry. These are typically what sit at the base of cell towers, where all the cell tower electronics lives.
Yeah, it's just kind of funny because it's like we have just a small transformer here instead of a telecom.
That's actually the comm gear for that one. That is the Comet. It's actually got a air conditioner on it on the side there. It's a little tiny one.
Oh, it looked like just power and a bit of data, but that's funny. I
Oh,
wouldn't have looked at it that way.
see the catwalk going around the back side of it, and there's probably a door, and there's a little air conditioner on it on the right hand side. Yeah, I mean that's a Comet there, but if you look to the left, there's two more just next to this, which I think are the main site incoming there, where they're trenching all around them to get ready to run new data lines somewhere. In
I
fact, that
I think
yellow
it might be
cab.
power specifically because they're really looking at doing a lot
Yeah,
of power.
the way that trench looks like just looks weird for power. There's so many little cuts and ins and outs of it. I think there's more going on there. And then if you look at that truck, it looks like he has equipment racks on the truck to go in the comm huts.
You work in data storage and things like that, so yeah, that would jump out for you. I was just like, I wonder what those are.
Yeah, those look like your absolutely standard equipment racks. You know, there's another hut on the side of the little shed house there. There's one behind that. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Actually, the one beside the house is not a comm hut. That's a porta potty.
Yeah, a really nice one, but yeah, these are the kind of things we're looking for here.
Yep.
But yeah, it's interesting is that like this site is growing and moving very rapidly. Speaking of which, let's jump over to some more concrete work actively ongoing as we're watching. This is an interesting one because you have all 4 pads here set up, and I still have in the back of my mind, it's like this is a minimum of 2 tanks, but there could be a third in the middle. Um, it's a close one.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It just depends on what type of feet are under the tanks, whether they spread out wider than the width of the tank or not, whether you could straddle mount 3 tanks on 4 pads or you need 2 pads per tank.
And it's kind of even worse than that in some cases. It's like um, these are the tanks I'm kind of looking at as being the potential options of being put on those pads. So they fit together as far as the width. So you're looking at like the width of these 3 and the width of these 4 pads. You can do it. That's basically what they did with, I think it was this pad up here. It's got 4 pads, but 3 tanks, and they're pretty close together instead of a system like this. And the other part is we have more tanks coming in. Uh, these are not the only ones. So, like, I hope that these are the ones that we use, but these could get used elsewhere, and they could be bringing in more tanks for this location, and things are just always in flux with those.
Well, we've still got that area that's surrounded by cryopipe that really just says, I want tanks here, but they don't seem to be doing anything to fulfill that wish.
Yep. Yep. But one of the nice things so far is that they haven't blocked themselves in. They can easily bring in the tanks and rotate them in place and put them on the concrete pedestals in the future once they get those done. These ones is a little bit more interesting because you have to basically come in this way and use this lot, get rid of some of the dirt to help allow your tanks to come in and go sideways, and then be brought in over the top of these, and they'll basically probably crane them in from the rest of the way in there, unless they can get the SPMTs just to work perfectly there. That'd be neat.
Yeah, I mean it's. My guess is they may not even come in on SPMTs. They may just come in on heavy load semi. In which case, yeah, crane and semi is probably how they'll get in there. What else have we got in this picture? We came across a couple things. Oh, well, the other thing that's happening is we got the nose cone, and we also have the what was it? Tank 6 test article that they popped up above that is finally getting shredded.
Yeah, it's becoming striber truck material, hopefully. It's a second life as not flying into space, but at least it's flying down the road.
Yeah.
That's my hope.
Yeah, I'm not seeing the scrap metal bin, but I expect there will be one there shortly to receive all those parts.
Well, they've been scrapping it somewhere, and I'm now wondering where it's been going to because
I think they just filled
gone.
a bin. I think they just filled a bin and they hauled it away, and they haven't brought a new one in yet.
Oh, okay, that makes more sense. But yeah, this was an interesting test. Going back to it, they did a flight termination system test on it. I was hoping that they would do such a thing. I was hoping there'd be a little bit more action afterwards because I was hoping they would do cryogenics. So basically hook it up to this T right here going across the road. But basically have some 2x4s underneath, fill it up, and then let off the flight termination system. Because the question is like, how well can the metal handle under cryogenics? It's obviously with Booster 7 and Ship 24, it kept on going. And that's why I wanted them to do a test like this. And then they did it. And everybody's like, well, that was unexpected. I'm like, yay, they did it. It was a very, very strange thing to see because it was, there 1 second and a few seconds later, it's just gone. It was all knocked over and it used the this area to basically prevent the splash from going across the rest of the way. They actually had to pull out this utility box that was sitting basically right here. And they just installed.
It did flood a little more aggressively, I think, than they expected in that direction because those HESCOs didn't quite do the job.
Yeah, they kind of ramped it up with the HESCOs. I think they needed to put the smaller ones behind it or even just another pair of larger HESCOs.
I think
but it worked out.
2 rows of large ones would have probably been a good move.
Yeah.
And as we're sitting here, Mauricio, do we have any gifts and donations so far this morning?
We have quite a few donations, and Indian Star will be reading those out. I don't know if she's available here.
I'm available. I haven't captured all of them, but I got a lot of them so far, and we've got donated memberships too. So we'll start off with the donations so far. We have a $1.99 donation from Steve Coates, who says choo choo, a $5 donation from Yazada, and we also have a donation $10 from Cranky Old Man, who says for fuel, plane rental, and sunny treats, keep spreading your wings, RGV. We also have PayPal donations, which is a reminder if all of you or any of you would like to donate, please feel free to donate through PayPal. A majority of that money then goes to Mauricio and the Flyovers versus YouTube, which is good through YouTube as well. But YouTube takes a good portion of it, so, or at least like 6%, I believe. But PayPal doesn't. So
it's like 30% from YouTube.
Even more. There you go.
Yeah.
30%. Thank you, Thomas. And then we have PayPal donations from Kenneth, I think that's still Steve, who donated $20 through PayPal and says, amazing pics, dodge those clouds. And I know we also have a donation from Crane Man. I just haven't pulled up PayPal just yet. I'm about to, and I will do Crane Man in the next round. And then we have gift memberships. We have Jim Cavett donated a membership, and we will rocket you as the benefactor of that donation. 55 Chevy Guy donated 5 memberships, and Ricardo P., Lindy R., Crane Man, Detroit Mission Control, and Lance H. are all recipients of those memberships. Thank you guys so much for your donations. We really, really appreciate it. And welcome to all the new people. We also have a new RGV Early Access member, Douglas E., who joined. Welcome to the team. And that's it for the donations.
Actually, you missed one. I will catch it. Jim Lyons donated 5 more memberships earlier, right after the first one.
Who did that? I'm sorry?
I think it just said Jim Lyons.
Chris Lyons. Chris Lyons. And we will rocket you, not Tom B., Devin Lewis, Arkful, and Just a Memo were the 5 people that got those donations.
Justin IMO.
Sorry, did you get PayPal one?
I got the one that's in the chat. I will get Crane Man in the next one and anyone else who donated. I'm just logging into PayPal right now.
Alrighty, sounds good. Thank you.
Did you want to read a question or two?
The only question was that I don't know who asked. Is there any opportunities of doing the same flyovers by Short Aristocrat? The same flyover streams for Roberts Road. And I pretty much just answered that question already. Greg Scott does some flyovers over there. He does amazing flyovers. But I feel like at this point, Roberts Road has slowed down significantly, right?
Yeah, I mean, really the only thing happening at Roberts Road that seems to be photogenic is Falcon stuff.
Well, and I have a few more questions, and I got those donations. Jim Cavett donated $10. He says, thanks RGV and friends. And then Crane Man donated $9.55, saying, snacks for Sunny. Please hit the like button. Just a reminder for everybody, if you enjoy what you're listening to, please feel free to hit the like button. And for those of you wondering where CSI Starbase is, he will hopefully be joining us at the launch site. That is the goal. And here's a question for you guys from John T. Are they going to rebuild the ground fabrication building at Sanchez? I guess I should have waited. Sorry on that one.
Oh, that's a great question. Let's jump into it. So, the ground fabrication building is being dismantled. It's over at the build site. The question is like, where are the pieces going? And we only have like two areas, or really one area that really sticks out. So Massey's, it would be kind of neat to see something happening there, but this is mostly a test site, not a construction site, at least for materials and systems that are typically for the ground. But the rest of it is kind of interesting because it's like there's one pad that might work, but the question is like, are they really saving the materials, or are they just taking it off? Dave, you've been watching them work on that.
They seem to be taking them off. At least the roof is coming off in complete panels fairly carefully, so they might be saving it. But the way the building's built, it's also one that's a little harder to knock down, like they did the low bay. So hard to say, but I'm gonna guess they're trying to salvage some of it, and there is that nice plot of land over by the Rocket Garden that they might be going to. And before we go over to Sanchez, this is a pretty amazing picture of the test rig for the puck shucker here you have up.
Yep, this was the last image, but I've always wanted to really talk about this part. So there's a load cell, basically this right here, that they're going through and calibrating the puck shucker. So they're going through and testing that out, basically putting pressure underneath. You could probably pull as well a little bit, but the push is the one that they're really looking at. And we had talked about this on the episodes a few times, and even on the stream here a little bit. But it's just cool to see them actually doing it. Mauricio got really lucky on this. So there's a crane attached to this on the other end. So they bolt it down, they go through, test it, unbolt it, lift it, go to the next one. And they've got 6 of them. And then this piece right here, it has its own system that you basically take this load cell, just stick it on to the center or one of these pistons, and then you can push up on these. It's just really cool to see that they're all coming together very quickly and testing it. The can crusher has a system just like this that basically has that shape, and it's just kind of cool that they're moving so quickly on testing out their test apparatuses so they can get to what looks to be puck shucking. And we actually didn't really mention this, but it is a big one. So we're still talking about this device. I'll actually go over one more image here. You can see it's been moved. It was over here. It's over here now. It's at the ship cryo station. So this is where I was talking about it last week, that they will probably put it not over here, because it's like, this is already a strong pad. You can't leave it here except for like storage. It's not meant for cryo over here, but here is. Here was also capable of doing that because that's what they're doing for boosters. But this is the ship side, and so why not just stick it over here? But they have moved it, so all we basically need is the first ship to come along and be used on this new puck shucker.
Well, we do need one other minor little detail called a crane big enough to pick a ship up over here.
Yeah, I mean, it's a minor detail, but I've been
And
wondering
easily
about
remedied.
this.
I don't know. You think there might be enough cranes somewhere nearby that they could find one?
They might just have a little bit of a larger crane than Grover. That's that GMK 75 or 7,500.
Yeah, 7550.
Oh, 50. Okay. Yeah. So they've got a crane like that's come in and been used for moving ships before. It doesn't move it very, very high up, which would be perfect for this. That one was just an old rusty version of a similar build of crane. And I haven't seen one of those for a while. So that would be interesting to see that just come wheeled in, move a ship on. It stays there for a few days and then it's out. It's just a rented crane for, the few days while they go through, lift it on and then lift it off after cryo and puck checking tests. But which one do we think will be the next one? I've got some ideas, but what do you say, Dave?
Given at the rate they're knocking out starships, we'll probably see another Starship tested before a booster, and I'm going to guess 26 is there. Yeah, 26 might get it. 27 will be your next one. 26 has already got engine, so it won't be 26. So 27 will be your next choice.
Yeah, I was thinking 27 or 28, because 27, it might be in that old family where they might be skipping it, or because then so they'll go for 28, but there's still a good chance for 27. 26, it's obviously got its engines. You'd have to take those off and then do the testing. But it's also another question, like, what have they changed to really necessitate the use of doing puck shucking on ships again? Typically, it's like we've changed the puck and that kind of thing. So, anyways, it was just something that I've been thinking about, that they should be seeing a ship here fairly soon, because this is all pretty much ready to go as soon as they're done with the load cell calibration testing. Um, it pretty much is just getting a crane in here and a ship, and it's ready to be stacked on here and do some cryo action. You'll probably be able to see that on Labs Raptor Roost Cam. It's really cool to watch these things happen. Like, you don't even know it's happening unless you got a word somebody went by and they saw police in front of Massey's. That's the only sign you get. You don't get any notices because they're not closing any public roads that necessitate that. Wow, I can't even say that word. Stop using it. But anyways, I think that's it for the Sanchez site. Unless there's anything else you.
Nope, I think we're moving right along. Let's head to Sanchez.
I meant Massey's.
Yep, let's head to Sanchez. It's been a busy week at Sanchez. Things are all moved around again.
Oh yeah, it's just moving like crazy over here. I just kind of figure out where we should start here. Top end, maybe.
Oh
Top
yeah,
end.
let's start at the old United Rentals corner and work our way down the property. Yeah, that's a good shot.
Yeah, the first thing I noticed is this weird coloration. What are we looking at, Dave?
That's scrap rebar, because they tore up a pad if you slide down, as you figured out last night. Once upon a time there was dirt here. Then United Rentals came in and they put concrete here. And then SpaceX came back and it's dirt again.
They're never satisfied with the concrete. You notice that, right?
Three times. Got to be 3 times.
I thought it was only 2 times they had to replace before it becomes permanent. It's 3 times now?
3
Wow.
times.
Yeah, so this area right here, it needs to basically be reconcreted because, well, they've obviously just pulled up this little section. We saw them move the shipping containers, and this is the little area that they're using for the ground fabrications team. As we mentioned before, the building is being torn down piece by piece, not torn down as in just completely wrecking ball it. And then this used to be a concrete pad right here. And it's like, wouldn't your stuff like to sit on concrete? But I guess it's just not good concrete, and they might be doing some other
or they
plans
have
here.
a plan for they may have a plan for something larger or heavier going in there, and they need actually footings or more structural something there. In which case, concrete's easy to remove. Just ask SpaceX.
I'm hoping for a rocket garden. What do you think?
We have a rocket garden.
I'm thinking a second rocket garden. I mean, we're going to be building ships pretty quick here in the next
I'm all for a
few
second
months.
rocket garden.
And then we've got lots of white stuff here that looks to be like more of wide bay 2 pieces and partses.
Yep. We still have the pieces right here, which is the booster basically booster pin system for the new transport stand that we have from Florida that they still haven't touched, except by moving the pieces around. Pieces of the deluge system. There's this one piece that they made that's just been sitting around. Oh, and I was wondering where these were at. Okay, I was just looking for these weird little parts.
More ring parts. Yep,
Yeah.
they migrate around the property regularly.
Yep.
As we're moving up here, we have the blast wall that is right now a pond scum collection system.
Yep. It's a lot of algae. Speaking of algae, you can kind of see it maybe on that one, but there's other ones that see it a little bit better. It's full of algae too. The mosquitoes must be pretty bad around here. But one thing we kind of mention, at least in the upcoming video, but it's really good to mention here is these, we call them like blast averters or something like that, because they're not quite ready for, putting underneath the launch mount or something, maybe around it at a little bit of a distance. So it's protecting something, is what we expect to see these be used for. But they've got this really strange shape that's going on that it is basically kind of like a ramp. There's this base that's a trapezoid shape, not trapezoid. It's how to describe that, but anyways, it's shorter on one end and larger on the bottom end.
That's a
Rectangular.
trapezoid. No, they're trapezoids. They're wedge shaped.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You were right,
Um,
Thomas.
it's just there's so many more geometry shapes that could better describe it. But anyways, um, yeah, it's got bolt holes down there, and that's it kind of indicating that this would be the top end. This is to be the bottom end, unless you've got a little bit of a wall. Then it becomes a ramp that you could basically have this side as the bottom and this side as the back end, which is just being forced up against a wall that you're bolting it down to. So still a bit of question on where these go. If you have an idea, throw it out in the questions. I would love to hear it.
And then hiding there, totally unrelated to all this type stuff, are 4 air conditioners that probably came over from the engineering building, propulsion building, whatever its name is this week before it's getting flattened.
I thought these were from the GSC building. I mean, the rust is just about right for welding
It could have
around
been
that
either
area.
one of them. They were both there. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
They're going
they
quick.
both had air conditioning. They both no longer exist. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the funny part about all this is that things are changing very rapidly on a lot of structures here. Speaking of structures, I was expecting another pad to be placed right here for the walls. They even like had put spray paint down. You can still sort of see it for another pad, but they actually didn't need it yet. They're not basically full up on their inventory. There is another piece. Let me see if I can go up a little bit higher. Right here. So they pulled out 2 of these, and this is a replacement for one of them. I don't recognize where the other spot is that they had pulled it out
Well,
from.
okay, the other one, they pulled it out between the aerial flight and the ground shots. The SPMTs are under the wall on the left there.
Oh, wow. So they used 2 of them. We were thinking they would like maybe
Nope.
just use one,
Nope,
but they used 2.
nope. They have. If you look on the SPMT, you can see the 3 sections that have crossover beams that go under the cross beam on the frame of the wall mount. So yeah, we saw that going down the road to go pick this wall up yesterday morning, and then after Mauricio flew, this one escaped. So at this point, they are able to move the walls over to the ring yard fast enough that they can reuse the same building spots. They don't have to go on to the 6th potential spot.
Yeah, it's just interesting that like they're they have a supply of these now that's like, oh, we can't build them fast enough, and yet they haven't even started stacking yet. It's weird. Like there's another piece right here. So these orange bits, I think, are these guys right here.
Yep.
So they basically have a lot of extras. There were some other support structure pieces. I think they're probably just down a little bit further. Oh, they were over here. I guess they pulled them already for that other one we have up above. But yeah, it's interesting to see the staging and the how quick they're going. They also have been painting the outside of these, so it is going to be a gray building on gray paneling, so it matches everything else. It's basically the same as the rest of Starbase. It's a part of a color code or color scheme that they've agreed upon with, what was it, the county and some other parties as well.
I think it was the county. There was a thing in their PEA about colors and painting of buildings to be least intrusive, I think was sort of the general gist of what the goal was.
Nothing says least intrusive than a large gray building.
It
Well,
was
it's
supposed
better
to
than
blend in, right? It was blue and white that they wanted, blue and those shades,
yeah, something better than fluorescent yellow and orange or something, I
and
guess.
black. They didn't want black, it seemed.
Well, yeah, that would be a little bit more intrusive. I do kind of like the white buildings better as far as like it does stick out a little bit, but it also blends in better because the skyline, it's like, oh, it's pretty bright out. It's hard
Well,
to
and in
see. It
the
looks like a
heat
cloud.
too. In the heat, it makes sense to have white buildings, right?
Yeah, it
Yes.
does reflect a little bit more of that sun energy and absorbing it. So yeah, that works out. Um, but yeah, moving over to this, we kind of mentioned those blast diverters. We're kind of looking at this as maybe another blast diverter or something similar to that, maybe a bit more beefy than the small ones. So there's these parts right here that go down in the line that looks like they're going to have some additional material either right on top of it, which I think is what's going on, or maybe they're doing some sort of cutout here that they're going to connect them together. But yeah, I would expect another beam going across right here. And there's 5 of these, but the interesting part is that the ends right here and right here are smaller than the and basically just shorter than the rest. It still has the same slope. It's just different as far as the length. And I'm kind of expecting that they'll go through and connect the tops as well because you can kind of see that they've uh, removed the material here on a few of these, and this one not quite yet, but it looks like they're going to be going through and connecting these all together as well. So it's all one really rigid, strong piece. I kind of expect this one to be closer to the blast zone, and maybe even just right up against the launch table on the bottom. What was your opinions or thoughts on this one, Dave?
I think it's going to be somewhere there. Um, yeah, it definitely being built much beefier than the other little blast shields. But I do tend to think this is more likely to be something like a blast shield and not a ramp for like vehicle because of the way it's being built so far. But it's weird. I'm still trying to figure out the 2 shorter ones on the ends. It almost makes it look like it's trying to fit next to or into something circular. Um,
Maybe OLM legs here and here.
I don't know. I just don't know. Yeah, I'm, 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 I'm a little confused. While we're talking about it, we have the last remaining unused booster transport stand.
Yep, the one that was sitting right here, which was used for Booster 10, was also the one they used for Booster 7. So that's pretty fitting. It's good to see that they're actually moving these about and using them. But the funny part is that was the one with the pins. These ones they have a pin system for them, but they don't have the hydraulics and everything else hooked up. So you can see some of that here. So they've got some extras that are lying around that they'll need to install. Uh, but yeah, it's really weird. They still haven't installed this yet. Um, and I think this was something that Indian Star, you were talking about this yesterday. Uh,
That's
this
right. Well
cattle
done,
prod
Thomas.
piece. Want to talk about that?
Sure. Actually, Dave educated me on this. We were looking at it at Massey's. In Massey's, it's half in the dirt, and all you see is the circular part on that bottom left end. And what it actually is where they vent out all the extra liquid gas, liquid good stuff, propellant, and the 2 ends and the circular part, those 2 ends direct the flow. And then the prong end is what goes into the pipes.
And so you were talking about also, I think last night that this would basically take 2 different sources and combine them together to come out this end, though.
Yippers. That's what
Okay.
Dave was saying.
I didn't hear Dave talk about it. I heard you talk about it, so it was good to hear from you on some of this stuff, and I want to hear more.
As soon as I learn more, I'll tell you.
Okay, so we'll move on a little bit to the manifolds and the steel plates that they're connected to. We've got some cool little updates here. So we've got these large brackets. This particular one that's on the top here goes with just this one, and this will only receive just one bracket. There are a total of 4 that we've counted that are here, but there were 5. which makes sense that one of these potentially, I think it's this one, has the bracket already installed. So there's actually 3 sizes of manifold. So the diameter of this one is large. This one's kind of medium. This one is small. And we already found this small bracket goes here. And so that's just the medium that we're missing because we have the large right here and another large right here. So it's basically this one should be installed. And you can see that maybe it's not this is the best
It's
picture.
the
Oh,
top
this
pipe.
one's, yeah, that one you can really see it, that they've already removed material right here. This is where we were predicting that would go. So this part right here connects directly to the steel plates, and basically what it is a brace. It prevents you from using the plumbing as your point of rotation or contact that holds the whole thing together. I mean, the plumbing does help, but you don't want to be relying on it. It's already been bent and angled in such a way that it will want to fold under the weight of either the tank itself or the panels. So that's not a great way to work with it. So these are really useful. And it's not just for transportation. We basically kind of talked about this in our next upcoming video here. It basically will allow for the system to take a little bit of a hit when you've got water hammer going through and affecting it. So it helps keep everything together as well.
Water hammer or vibra hammer?
Well, in this case, it's a water hammer. The vibra hammer is a little bit more useful for the
Putting the
sheet
pilings in.
Yeah, sheet piles.
Actually, even the round ones, they actually use a vibra hammer to put the big round ones in to start them.
Oh, really? That's cool.
Yeah, that left yesterday. Yeah, so those brackets are there, and then of course up here we have the big Y, which has been or is in the midst of being beautifully painted gray because we don't like our pipes rusty.
Who likes
Good
rusty
point.
pipes? Nobody.
Scrap dealers, maybe.
Maybe. You're right there. Maybe.
And then something to point out here that I think you spotted yesterday, Thomas, is that taper transition there is not centered. The small pipe is offset on the center of the big pipe.
Yeah, that was one of the weird, interesting parts. It was like we talked about, like, why did they go through and originally replace it? And now you can actually really see it extremely well. It's got a good definition. The original was basically centered. It was just a reducer. It was centered from this side to this side at the very end, but this one it's been offset. So it seems like they've got some tolerance issues that they're trying to deal with, and that's the solution is just to offset this by a little bit with this reducer. It works. It's just a little bit different.
I like a little bit different.
And before we go too much further, I see we got a bunch of donations and gifts.
We do. Starting off with the donations, James L. donated $10 and says, towards cameras, and maybe more people will chip in. Then he donated again with $20 and says, for flyovers. Sharpie donated $10 and says, more flyovers and photos. Rocket Profit donated $10 and says, hop on the more train. Jim Cavett came in with $10 and says, I'm with Sharpie. And then for donations, we have Jacqueline. She donated to a membership to Kevin M. He was the benefactor. Rocket Profit came in with 5 membership donations, and they went to Joe C., Marcy, Brian K., Tuber R., and Space and Rail Fan. Brent Dean also donated 5 memberships, and they went to Lake D., Burger B., Rominator 10, 321 CJH, and Petri N. And those are all the donations so far. I haven't seen anything on PayPal yet, but I'm looking, so don't worry. I got you guys if you're donating in PayPal.
And Mauricio, do we have some questions?
All right. Yeah, we have a couple of questions here. First one's from Dennis. And we take the supply of stainless steel for granted. 1,000 starships will use a lot of stainless steel. From what I know, stainless steel has some rare ingredients. Might it have supply difficulties?
I think I can take that one. They're going to use a lot of stainless steel as far as we're concerned, but if you look at somebody like an appliance manufacturer or somebody who makes anything out of stainless steel, SpaceX is actually a pretty small customer. for a steel mill.
And the cool part is that they use 304L. It's the same stuff you have what you use in your kitchen. It's very common. It's highly produced. So yes, you might have a supply shortage of particular elements or parts that are coming in for the stainless steel, but the market is so large for all of that stainless steel that they basically have it kind of buffered for the most part. You're going to see a little bit delay here and there because of this or that, but mostly it's available. It's very cheap. They have like at least 3 different suppliers I've seen so far of different stainless steels. But mostly it's just one company, I think, out along the Mississippi River that they've chosen for their stainless steel so far. And they use a little bit of a derivative of 304L, so it's a little bit more custom. I think they call it 30X, but it's basically 304L with just a couple other things changed.
Mauricio, there's a question for you as well. Andrew C is asking, what kind of camera and lens system do you use for the flyovers?
All right, yeah, I already answered that one in the chat, but yeah, it's a Sony A7R4 and a 600 millimeter, and for the wide shots, I used what is it, the 70 to 300. So,
Speaking of wide shots,
yes. Well, that one was captured at 200 millimeters.
Oh, okay. So you just because it's an adjustable 200 to 600 for that Sony lens that you've got.
But yeah, it's usually when there's clouds, I don't bother with the other lens. I just stick with the 200 to 600. But yeah, we have another question here from. Actually, I don't have the name, but I have not seen any signs of the high pressure water pumps arriving for storage at Sanchez yet. Do we know where they're at?
I don't expect any high pressure water pumps. The high pressure is going to come from gas pressure, not from pumps.
And that was Michael Maxey.
I'm going to try to delve into that question a little bit further and ask what exactly we're talking about on the high pressure water pumps for what exactly? For Massey's, I'm just like, what would be something we need water at Massey's for?
No, I think this is
pumps?
I think he's talking about for the deluge system.
Okay, that makes more sense. So yeah, the deluge system that we have so far is just pressure fed. So they've got tanks that are rated anywhere from like 200 to 300 bar. I think it's still closer to the 300 bar area, which is around like 5,000 psi. So pounds per square inch. That's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of volume in those tanks because there's quite a few of them, and they can basically get more. There's already Slick 40 that uses those same types of tanks to drive their water deluge system, and they're driving, I think, a bit more water quicker, but it's not actually as high of pressure on the other side, but it's more of a it's kind of just interesting if you ever watch it. But it looks like there's pumps and there's not. It's just using nitrogen, dry nitrogen to drive all of that. Is there any other questions we can jump into, or more Sanchez?
There were questions about the pusher. I don't know if, or I'm sorry, the stand. But Mauricio, I'll leave you to
the one at Massey's.
Yeah, that's why I said never mind.
Oh, I could talk about it all day. Let's do it.
I know you love the can crusher. So there was 2 questions from Ernest. Ernest is actually wondering, is the stand or the cryo station going to have pushers?
It already does. That's what these pieces right here are for. So they basically are in the middle. You can see this piece sticking up. There's 3 of them for the sea level. And then there's, these are the RVACs. And then the 3 center are the sea level. This one actually, is the RVAC. It's got that shape to it. The same as this. This is actually a better view. So yeah, these are the outer 3 RVACs, and then the inner 3 sea level. You can barely see the rams inside here. There's at least one right there. You can see another right there. But yeah, it's pretty cool. Cool. I think that was the question. That was quick.
Mine was easy.
Shall we continue up the side of Sanchez over by the electrical station that's slowly growing here?
Absolutely. My favorite part right now, though, is these. You can almost make out the brand label a little bit, but I think it says something like Tesla on those.
It should say Tesla Mega Pack, 3.9 megawatts each.
3.9. Wow.
I think they're 3.9. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
the current Mega
these aren't
Pack.
those. I
Yeah.
thought the mega packs had those circles in them.
No. Well, these have the shipping plastic over them, so you can't see the vents on the top.
Yeah, the one we actually have a couple other mega packs, or 3 of them more up at the tracking station next to the solar farm. But these ones, it's like they're a little bit newer. So those are the older generation. These are the newer generation. I was looking at these were just the 3 megawatts, but 3.9. That is.
I think their website says they're currently 3.9 is the current production.
Wow, that is impressive. That's a lot of power for basically helping reduce the amount of loads that are like if you suddenly turn on a lot of welders or some pumps or something somewhere near on the site, this will help be able to handle that so you don't have this sudden drop in voltage. Um, that is pretty neat. And the cool part is you don't have to use this nearly as often. So this is kind of like a peaker plant. I think that's what they're seem to have been using this as. So when they've been low on power, they need additional power, they'll turn this on, or they expect they'll be using a lot. You'll see these basically flaps open, and I haven't seen this open for a while now. So I think they're slowly getting in some power to different systems, and this has basically been shuttered, and we'll probably see this only for backup power. So, like, you'll see this maybe turn on once a month now at most. Unless you get a blackout, then they'll use these guys, then it will slowly turn on these systems because it does take a little bit of time to start up beach generators.
Yeah, those actually should start up pretty quick because they're internal combustion engines driving them. They're not like turbines.
I mean, like it's not just like seconds though, because like you'll have a blackout, it takes a few seconds to turn it on.
Yep.
So this will definitely help basically prevent these from being used for a little while, because some blackouts are just lasting, split seconds, where the system would jump in and think, oh, I need to turn on the generators. Oh, actually I didn't. These took it over, and the generators are actually fine because the power came back on its level now, because sometimes that's something going on at switch yard or whatever else. But yeah, there's a lot of conduit everywhere underground here, because this is pretty much the Sanchez substation all throughout here. It's even getting another little hut like this right here.
Yeah, I mean my read on this is this area right here is going to be the Starbase main power substation. Power coming in from Brownsville will land here. Power from the peaker plant. Everything will be concentrated here, and then from here will be distribution out to the build site, the launch site, tracking station area, the village.
And you also like to make the distinction that it's Magic Valley coming into this point, but pretty much from here, SpaceX would be the utility from this point on.
Yeah, I mean, Magic Valley is delivering probably to that transformer in the bottom left-hand corner. Is the guess. That's probably the big one. That's the 30 kV input transformer, and from there, everything else here is property of SpaceX High Power Division, as we see their pickup trucks labeled and their vans when they're driving around the site. They do have a permanent power operations crew as part of Starbase.
They make things go. Sorry, it's a little
Dave,
bit of a Star Trek reference.
Dave, is that the same group of people we see laying the cable in the trench on the side, bringing the power?
The people laying the cable are probably a contractor. Everyone I've seen pulling and laying cable when I've been down there has been third-party contractors, but they're all contracted to SpaceX through the High Power Division.
Okay, thank you.
Like I say, normally I just see like a white pickup truck or a white Ram van, and they just have a magnetic sign on the door that says High Power. It's like, oh, you're the guys.
Yeah, because it's interesting to think about this. Like, without good, stable power, there are so many issues that you have downstream that you wouldn't really think about. So, for instance, welding, welding robots, they like stable power. If you throw voltages up and down, and even just by small amounts, you change your welds in such a way that you've either failed the QC on the welds, or you've deteriorated them in some way that you can't spot at first, but then it's like, oh, we've got inconsistencies, you've got sputtering, you've got all sorts of stuff. That was one of the things that they did originally with the solar panels, but the site has grown a lot more. They've got a lot more power consumption, and so this whole setup is really needed. One thing I was actually kind of looking at, Dave, is we've got these three megapacks here, and there's three transformers and three pads, but the pads themselves are a little too wide. I wonder if we're gonna get another three in.
I'm
So
expecting 6. Yeah,
okay,
two packs per transformer. That's what it looks like they're setting up for.
okay, because yeah, I mean they're parking here, and it just fits just right. So I had to ask that to see if I
Yeah,
was
that's just a guess, but I would expect the way they're laying them out, yes, there's probably going to be 6.
okay. Moving up a little bit, moving on. We've got this new system right here. It's a turntable, and people keep asking what this is. It's the same as this, except this one's covered in plastic, white plastic. We've seen it before at the same location, and then it came back with the plastic on it. It's like, why did they do that? I don't know. It maybe wanted to be a little bit more weatherproofed beforehand, and we might see the same thing happen with this, unless they maybe they just used this one somewhere.
I think that one just went into White Bay.
Okay, because yeah, things
Or
are
one, or if not that one just like it was just delivered to White Bay. I don't remember the sequence, whether that was before or after Mauricio flew.
things are always changing with the construction of starships, and these turntables are so useful. Um, but the interesting part to think about is that they're pretty much suspending the sections in the air, so it's reducing a bit of weight on the turntable, and they just get in the right position. Which it's funny. It's thinking about it. You've got a crane which isn't very precise, but you are using it to do very precise things. In this case, welding starship sections together. Um, and I guess if you go through and have that system calibrated just right, your tolerances actually are even less of an issue than they would have been. Um, because if you have a calibration system to say exactly where the crane is at, you can move it very precisely, but it's a typically very imprecise instrument to use a crane for an operation like this. But they're doing it, so they've got something set up in the crane system to be able to move it just millimeters or something.
By the way,
Yeah,
Starship Gazer is in our chat.
Well, hello, Ryan. It's good to see you.
And we all love your work. Thank you for everything you do, Starship Gazer. Sorry, Dave, you were going to say something.
I just actually, if you see, I just welcomed him over in the chat too. I think I've gotten distracted by what I was going to say.
I think we all lost distraction. We were talking about turntables.
Yeah, I mean, turntable, one was delivered by a semi to White Bay, but it may have gotten rerouted over here, because I thought that was the day before yesterday. So this may have been the one that went in the build site and may have ended up in Sanchez.
Okay. Because yeah, there's always some movement with these things. We've seen one in mid bay went to high bay, and then we've seen a few of these appear at mega bay as well. It's just crazy how much they're really making this more of a production facility in the bays. We're like, oh yeah, they're producing them like I don't know, popcorn. It's just a lot of them very quickly. As far as rockets go, especially rockets of this size. I don't remember the numbers for Saturn V, but they weren't anywhere near this kind of level. Even with their prototypes and test articles, it would have been compressing it down to like 3 years equivalent for all of the Saturn Vs. Like you'd have to do basically that many, or even less than 3 years. It's just incredible to see how fast this is going.
Well, while we're sort of working our way up here, We can either go towards the rocket garden or we can go towards the inventory shed. Which way do you want to go?
Let's go to the inventory because we can get to the rocket garden here in a bit.
So once again, they've been rearranging their outside storage. Last week we had a bunch of painted squares over here right in the center of the screen, and now they filled them all. And we had some half-empty racks, and they look to be pretty well filled. Starbase done getting organized.
That's what
I actually
happens
see
when
number
Gwen comes to
8.
town. Sorry, Thomas.
Yeah, Gwen does make things move. She comes in,
And
it's like, I don't like
organized.
the way this looks. Yeah, she makes things happen and very constructive. This
Very.
one is not really occupied. Number 8. It's being left alone, but I think they're starting to fill in stuff in this area, so maybe that's what that's about.
Well, if you look, there's 4 pallets of valves that are sitting in the aisle that might just be headed for number 8.
Good point. But it's amazing he's got this pipe balanced on the forklift right there. It's like, wow, that doesn't look so balanced from this angle. But anyways, it's really cool to see them like organize all of this, and it's probably going to be a bit more inventory that they like. Right now they've got 2 things going on. They've got inventory, and then the other cool part is what's going on in here. It's not just inventory, it's the water-cooled steel plates. We're still seeing some action there. We'll get to those in just a bit.
Which I was thinking about since we started the stream. Has this tent partly been taken over by the ground fab group when they lost their GSE building?
I think it was taken over by the ground fab group before they lost their GSE building.
Well, I mean, did they know they were going to lose their building, and so they started, like, projects got started here instead of getting started over there?
Yes.
Those guys could pretty much work anywhere, but yeah, you're probably right about that.
And speaking of this building, note the dirt around it. There's a little excavation project going on here.
Yep, they've been bringing their grade up all the way up to here. You can barely see it, but there's a little bit of a line right here, like a moat, to say, okay, well, we're bringing the grade up on this side, so it's all level with the concrete, and so they're probably going to go through, put this all into a nice concrete system. They might even have like a French drain in here or something. That'd be kind of cool. But the real thing is, like, they've got more room to work with in just this little area. And then this is all private property right here. So the owners are looking at selling it, but it's for a little bit more than I think SpaceX or anybody else is really willing to accept. You'd have to have a lot of potential revenue that would be coming just from this little parcel to make that worth their while for anybody who would want to purchase it. There was another thing down here that was pointed out that is pretty simple to look. It's missing grid fins. I think they got installed on booster 11.
And there was also a ship thrust puck down here that has disappeared.
Oh yeah, the one that was sitting like right there.
Yep.
Yeah, that inventory tent is going to be very active soon. What's funny is, like, they have all this inventory. They're not using a whole lot of it. But my favorite thing is these. They always move around. Like, every time I look, these panels just move around. They're always in the wrong place. So they were like here, and they just kept moving around, and then they got stored over here. Eventually, they're like, well, we need this piece over here. So these are going to have to move over here, and it's going to be always just trying to get at one little thing in the back there. This area needs to get cleaned up eventually as well, but I think that's kind of what they're doing with all of this. You have an unload bay right here for flatbed trucks like this. So the flatbeds are basically coming in, and they will have pallets, or even the box truck like this just have something in the back that needs to be unloaded. They'll drop it off here and unload it onto the shelves or into the tent, where it has plenty of shelving as well. And it's kind of interesting to think about, like, once the GSE guys are out of here, there's no more welding. There's going to be more availability for storage. So a lot of this will be probably going away or being stored outside like these.
Thomas, are you saying that the white zone is for loading and unloading of vehicles only? No parking?
Something like that.
Yeah. So yeah, there's quite a bit of movement there, and then this was entertaining. It's like, how many generators do you need? And they've
Apparently
got
quite a
like
few.
toolboxes. I think this is
Those, yeah, those are all welders, I believe.
yeah. I'm not sure about these ones.
Those are all job boxes.
Yeah, but it's funny. It's like, is this United Rentals like new drop off point? I haven't seen those guys in a bit, so I wonder where they're at. Like they're not around here, as far as I can tell.
Well, it's going to be harder to know because like every man lift United Rentals has is over at the launch site and the build site.
Good point.
Yeah, we were launching, and of course everything had to get put away and stowed. Now we're not launching, and everything's been hauled out and is hard at work.
Yeah, it's just funny to see how how that all works. Is that yeah, I still love that joke. Loading, unloading only for the points. So
Thank
that's
you.
so
I did
funny.
too.
But yeah, this is nice to see that the progress here. And let me go back to these guys. You can actually see them a little bit better. We found additional valves. Thanks to Har, we were looking at these last night. And I was just like, "What are those?" And he's like, "Those are just standard valves." He's a Patreon member of ours, by the way. If you are a patron member, you can join us live in here. And then before and after, we basically talk about what's going on here as well during the pre-show. The pre-show is mostly us setting up and talking with people a little bit, and then the after show we basically go through, do this and do it a lot more, but it's direct questions, so text and live. So I do recommend for everybody who's gotten basically the gift memberships, come join us on Discord. So !Discord will get you the link to the Discord server.
And more than that, Thomas, they get to join us on the show and tells. And what are the show and tells, Thomas?
Oh, the show and tells where pretty much everything happens. We learn about like this stuff and what's going on with everything. We get some of that here as well. It's like live reactions of like, oh, what's that? Oh, those are interesting. And we'll do that here. But show and tell is a lot more rabbit holes where we really learn some interesting things. It's just a whole lot of fun.
Explore the whole of the rabbit.
Yeah, we go through the entire rabbit cavern almost. It's a pretty big hole with a lot of stuff to go through and look at.
All I know is Thomas always ends the night with a big old smile on his face.
Oh, every time. Everybody pretty much does. They all enjoy it.
For sure, so everybody does. But it's always nice to hear you have a smile on your face too.
Want to move over to the rocket garden?
Yes, please.
Yeah, actually, the other thing we were pointing out is all the parking along the street now that they're losing some of their Stargate parking area.
Oh, good point. Forgot about that. That was a huge change there. So let me move it down to about here. Yeah, there's a bit of parking issues here, but I think it has to do with what's over on this side.
Yeah.
Let me drop it over here because you've got this nice large building that's taken up quite a few spots, probably about maybe this many, but not all of these.
Well, there's more down at the other end by the gate of
oh wow,
Sanchez. No, go to the far end of Sanchez. There's more down there too, by the United Rentals end.
Right here?
No, by the United Rentals old end. There's a lot more cars parked down there too.
Oh wow, yeah, these.
Yeah, those.
I'm like, the United Rentals end. This is it now. The old one.
Yeah, well, the old
that's
one.
this area.
We have to come up with a name for that area so we can the gate, the entry gate.
Old United Rentals still works, but I mean now there's an old and there's an old.
So Rocket Garden.
Yeah, something's different about it this week. Something extra. Oh, Booster 10. Yeah, it's cool. It's there. It's got the one with the pins again. It's Booster 7's transport stand. It's funny that it's like the only one with the pins, and this one got it. And it's like Booster 9's the one that should be next. It should have gotten that transport stand. But they can always take these off or just build the pin systems for the new ones.
It's more likely they can be adding them to the others.
Yeah, probably. Booster 4 here, it's got the a similar transport stand to these, except it's its pin system isn't installed. But what's really weird is they have upgraded all of these transport stands. So at the very bottom level, let me see if I've got a ground shot of that real quick. There is the basically vertical supports. It's just interesting that they've gone through such lengths, especially on Booster 4, to put in that. I don't think I have any of those. I just have the tops of the other current transport stands. But yeah, it's interesting because it's like that's meant for like cryo loading. There's going to be a lot of compression on these, unless it's like they're moving around and they're like, oh, the transport stands aren't strong enough, even though they're the beefiest things you can see on the site. They have even more reinforcement. So I think it's meant for really cryo loading, and that's going to be something you're seeing these just basically rolled in to the Massey site, right where that new pad is at, and then we're going to basically just have this plopped down right in place with the 12 feet bolted down, and then you'll basically go through, do the whole cryo load testing. They call it cryo proofing is another way to call it, but it's basically verifying that the systems all work right. And one of the cool things is it kind of cleans out the tanks as well. So you have a little bit of dust or small debris that you can work with, that you can remove that way. Basically anything that's clinging onto the walls. They seem to basically dump out the beginning and end of each run for cryo loads. Even with ships, they do the same thing.
So there was a question. There was actually two questions about boosters real fast. One question is from Well Ain't That Nice. Is Booster 10 tapered or is that a cam effect?
That's a camera effect. They're all 9 meters.
And then the other question is, where's B9? Paul Harris asks.
Booster 9 is still sitting snugly here in Mega Bay. They're still working on it. I think they're doing the final kind of checkouts for it to basically be rolled out to the orbital launch mount. It's going to be the one that's next. So they're paying extra special attention to it. There's the thing I call the twin paradox with ships and boosters. They have a twin, an identical twin. Booster 4, it was Booster 5. And with Booster 9, it's Booster 10. So Booster 10's basically out to pasture for a bit. I think they want to use all of their boosters and ships unless something goes wrong with one of them. They might just make a small change or tweak to the current one, but they'll skip it if it doesn't work out. So I'm crossing my fingers that they don't skip anymore. But it is interesting that, Booster 10 just sitting here as if it's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna fly, maybe. It's gonna be a little while. We're gonna have to go through Booster 9 first, and then we'll get back to you.
Oh, should we head over to the build site?
Just 1 minute before we do. Wanted to mention something kind of important about this location and what has transpired here more recently. This is back on, I think, April, 22nd or so, or past that. The water manifolds got scrapped. We figured out kind of a time frame because it was like they were there on the other side of Sanchez, and then they were gone. And then I actually do have a little bit of a picture from earlier, I think, that shows something that was kind of unexpected here. So let me try to find that one picture. I forgot that I was going to do this. So it should be in here. There are the parts right here. There they are. These are the tops of the manifold. What's left of them anyways. That was all that's left. They scrapped everything else. So those big manifolds from 39A, they're no more, as far as we can tell. Because one thing we heard is that they were over at the GSE building, and then they started tearing it down, and we're like, okay, where is it? And we looked through the building; it's not there.
I was going to say, now that the GSE building has no skin on the one side, it's very obvious there's nothing there.
Yeah. So this is just an important note to put down, that we had that two water manifolds. In fact, this is all that's left. So they're keeping these parts. They might be using it for another manifold system. But I wonder about that. Even it's like they might have uses for these, or it's just we think we might, and then they don't, and they scrap them anyways. But yeah, let's go through and ask if there's any other questions.
There was a question. James Robert asked, "What is puck shucking?" I know you've answered it a couple of times, so you might want to refresh.
All right, one more time at Massey's. So puck shucking is hydraulic rams that they will simulate the flight loads on a ship or booster. So they basically push up on the ship or booster for the hydraulic rams while the booster or ship is being held down by the test apparatus. In this case, this is the puck shucker. So a puck is the area that the engines are mounted directly to. It looks kind of like a hockey puck, especially for the ship side. The booster, it's a bit bigger than that, and so it's a little bit thinner, but the idea is still the same. And shucking is what you don't want to do with it. So, like shucking corn, you don't want to shuck the puck. That's a Elon tweet, I think from like 2019 or 2020. That basically, I think it was SN1. They shucked the puck. they kind of separated the elements. So that's where that comes from. And the name Can Crusher was something I came up with when I figured out what this thing was for. It was basically similar to a puck shucker, but you don't want to crush the can. That's why I call it the Can Crusher. It's like you can, but you don't want to. But yeah, that's a quick answer. I hope for your question here.
All right, yeah, we can move on to the build site.
And Indy, I think we have some donations.
We do. We have donations from. We have a donation for $1.99 from Staple B05 and from Robert Fillmore for $19.10. And he says, "Thank you, Mauricio, and your team." We also have a gift donation from Sharpie, and that benefactor was Papa G. That's all the donations that's fit to be told at this time.
Thank you, Sharpie. And just double check any ground shots, because that's something we always seem to miss. We have a little bit of time here before we jump to the rest of the build site, but just double checking to see if there's anything else, because there's always something cool that we sometimes miss. And I know what it is now that I'm thinking about it. It's
What
coming
is
up
it?
here. Do you want to take a guess?
I don't even know what it's in reference to, so guessing would not work for me at this
We're
point. Give me a hint.
pretty close to it. We're almost there.
I would say the inside of the tent. You can see them welding on it.
Yep, that's the one.
Mauricio and you guys are on the same wavelength these days. Good
Well,
thing.
that's the special shot through the open door.
Yeah, let me just jump right to it here.
So I was trying to figure out like the best angle for this particular shot, and it looks like they covered up most of it. There's some type of film around the plate.
It looks like it's cardboard. It looks like they took like shipping cardboard and taped it onto it.
Yeah.
I don't even think they've got cardboard. It's just literally painter's tape directly onto it to protect contaminants from getting inside. I mean, you can see the hole where it's supposed to be. So this is the metal steel plates for the deluge system, but this one's an extra special one because these parts right here, when we looked at it last week, you could see through and see all of this, but these are screw-on parts. Like you have pieces that will be screwed on directly from one plate system to another, or something similar to that. And yeah, it basically has these holes that are connecting for piping. I have an interesting theory that I've put forth, and we put it in the video as well for our
flyovers.
The flyovers, but it's the shorter videos.
Yes, it's the flyover videos that are under 20 minutes.
It's the
weekly summary video.
Yeah, it basically summarizes everything. Instead of 3 hours, it's like 20 minutes or 15 minutes or so. And the interesting thought that we looked at is there are only 3 manifolds total. So there's only 3 water inputs. Basically, what we're looking at is this would be one of the systems that you connect to the 3 water plates, but this is one of the other 3. So there's should be a total of 6 steel plates going in all directions because you want to distribute water as evenly as possible. This one would be the ones for the in between the ones with the water manifolds. It's a little bit harder to describe without the images, which is really nice to have now I think about it. But yeah, this is
Well,
just
when we
such a
get there,
cool shot.
yeah, you can talk about it again when we get there.
Yeah, I'd have to actually pull open a couple of images. We have the space engineer. He's helped go through and make the renders for these. And this one's interesting because you can see this steel plate part is not covered in tape. It's just odd. So it's another one, I think, or something nearby. Yeah, that's so cool. All right, let's jump over directly to the build site. So a lot is going on here. Where should we start? Dave, do you want to take a
Oh, I don't
direction?
know. I'm going to say the new construction area. So they're busy putting the outer stiffener bands around the existing first story that they have got up. They made it about halfway around on the far side. My expectation is they have to get all of those in before they start putting the second deck on. But those go up really pretty fast. I think even between the aerial photos and the ground photos, it changed.
The ground photos, they're done. Like, as far as I could tell, this was all done here. So that you can see these two guys sticking on the Z-girts. That's what these pieces are called. And it does actually help reinforce the frame.
I'm more talking about the big white frames that go outside.
Oh, these pieces.
Those pieces.
Yeah, they do need those. Okay, I didn't look at that part. I was looking at the Z-girt going, oh yeah, I got to get the Z-girt in. And the paneling is an interesting one too, is that sometimes they'll start the paneling in the section that they're going to stack the corner before they do. And I've seen that before. That was always interesting.
Yeah, so they've got two corners over here now. So they've got half of the next deck in this area. The second corner came over after the overflight. But I would expect that in the next, probably by Monday, we will see the 11,000 ready to lift these corners into place as they start stacking up wide bay number 2.
And you have to acknowledge the elephant in the room too. That's no longer existing. No.
Oh shoot, I can't remember what the elephant is now.
Low bay. Where's low bay?
Oh, that was
Okay.
last week's news.
No. It's the elephant in the room still. I mean, it's out of the room in this case.
Well,
but it's not in the picture frame.
It's not only low bay now. The elephant is low bay, the engineering building, pretty soon the GSE building. Look at the engineering. What engineering building?
This was the old like production building. I called it the old white production building because that's what it was labeled as. But yeah, it's gone. Like you could see what it was made out of. It's wood and metal, and now it's just scrap wood and scrap metal, and kind of sorting out the two.
Yeah, the bulldozers getting ready to work on this pad.
Yeah, this guy's pretty much going through, picking out the metal, sticking it over here, and leaving the wood piles alone. And there's like a dumpster in the middle of all this. It's like halfway buried.
Well, there's 3. you see all the dumpsters. I mean, I think they're filling them as fast as the trucks can come and pick them up.
Yeah, it's impressive to see how quickly this is gone. This one was even more impressive. 136 seconds to take down this building.
Yeah, boom, it's gone.
It's 2 booms, but yeah.
Well, and then so if you notice here on 10th 3, there is a nose cone outside.
Aha.
If you look at Sentinel Cam right about now, there's 3 nose cones outside.
It multiplied.
10th 3 is rapidly losing its contents.
Yeah, so Mauricio got some ground shots of this.
There you go. Look at that.
That is just fantastic. But it's
Mauricio,
like,
this is a fabulous shot.
So this one's all done. It makes sense. So this was like what, 30? This was 31 nose cone. I can't remember now. I think that's what it was.
I think it's slower than that, but yeah. But yeah, and then today, it's now got another one there.
Yeah, it's
Another
all
one has
three.
escaped. Yeah, that one that was being lifted is now outside. There's still more inside, but not for long. It looks like.
That's the weird part to me is this one. It makes sense that they're gonna get it out of the tent. The second one, it's like, wait, you're not done. What are you doing out here? Go back in, get fully dressed before you come outside. And then this one is just completely naked. There's nothing on it, and they send it outside. There's one in the back as well. I can't tell if that one's the same height as this one. So once they've got the bottom ring on, so it's got really two sections. The what the That's different. I just noticed that the stretched panels are shorter sections now. That's different.
No,
Oh
there's
no, okay.
upper and
I'm
lower.
sorry. Yeah, it's just the lower one's a lot larger than I remember it. I thought it was only it went up to like here, but no,
No,
it does go up to there. That's right.
yeah. So you're seeing the horizontal lines are the reinforcement, not panels.
Yeah, I'm just thinking this was lower, like down to here. But anyways, it is the full stack on that one too. Then, so
Yeah.
they're actually moving these out pretty quick. But the problem is that they're not fully finished, and the question then becomes, what's going on with Tent 3 that they need to
Well,
get rid of these and
there's
out of the
something
tent?
else interesting in this shot, Thomas. Look along the right edge of the door.
I was just going to say that. The robot welder arms. That's
Kuka, kuka,
amazing.
kuka, kuka.
3 of them.
4 or 3? 3 or 4?
Well, there might be one down here, so there might be 4.
I'm going to say 3, but there's something down at the bottom there. Yeah.
So cool.
Just
Do you think they
hanging
have 3
out.
on the other side too? Like mirroring it?
Probably not, because these are on turntable.
Yeah, you only need one side, so yeah, that would work out. The one cool thing is that there might be additional welding robots like these on the other side, but further back in, just for welding. These ones are for the pins for, well, I mean, it's a type of welding. The pins for the heat shield tiles, they need to be very accurate about where they're being placed. And so as it's rotating, these robots go through, place those pins, and they have to rotate it just right. Otherwise, these robots are like, hey, slow down. I need to get my pins right in place. You're going too fast, especially at the bottom one, because the top one has less to do, but it has to reach out more, which it needs to be more accurate with, and that's always fun. So welding robots, they're kind of like a human arm in the sense that it has to be able to be precise enough to put something exactly where you want it, um, but it needs to also be stabilized, and so it needs to slow down and start and move just the way a human arm would. Like if you just push your arm way out really quick, you slow it down before it gets out to the extension. The same thing has to happen with the robots, otherwise they will move around and jiggle, and that's never good because then you're off of what you were supposed to be. They don't have a lot of sensors typically on these systems to be that precise otherwise. So it's always really cool to look at robots. Okay, let me jump back over here because there's still plenty more going on this side of the site. So this one was an interesting one. It's an E-dome, but it looks like it's upside down. Which
Isn't it
Jax would
upside
jump in.
down?
Yeah, this one's upside down. Like this is a common dome. So they're moving to booster common domes, all E domes
Well, so
from booster 10 on.
that would say it's been sleeved but not flipped.
Yeah, that's another weird one. There's a lot of little oddities lately, and this is basically the second ring yard, which is cool to see they've got that going on now. So they're filling up this area, and unfortunately, these ones are empty ring stands. They need to be filled with stuff, but that's a production matter for later. This is basically the second ring yard that's slowly occurring. So at least in this side, and then they're slowly going to be filling up this area. They've got all of these ring transport stands to use in the Star Factory and out here. I would love to see this area be filled up with starships. this area filled up with boosters, and then all of these empty rings go back to the Star Factory, but they probably don't have room for the Star Factory for all of these rings. So if you kind of look at it this way, that's kind of what the Star Factory looks like on the inside. Probably a little bit more floor space to get in between, but not by much. It's pretty densely populated in there as well. So there's another common dome for booster 12.
But
that one's already
oriented
been flipped.
correctly this time.
Yep.
However, they can't do much more in this ring yard. If you notice where the crane mats are there, they need that open access for the SPMT to drop off wall sections.
Yeah, good point. So this crane's in the way, but he's just moving around a lifting jig, and that truck is probably just guiding him.
Actually, I think looking at the tire marks there, they came in by where that blue, that route.
Okay. But yeah, and eventually this will probably fill in as well. But right now, you're right. The corner pieces for Mega Bay take a little bit of precedence here because they want to get this done as quickly as possible. And they're kind of doing the same thing with Star Factory, the expansion. They are moving extremely quick. So they want to push to make these starships happen a lot faster. And we only have a launch license with 5 a year, but it's all part of the PEA, which really is interesting. We have to look at it as eventually, once Star Factory is going and humming along, they're going to have too many starships in order to launch. One of the first things they're going to do, send them off to Florida. They're going to basically be barged over, I think. I think they're going to also be done vertically in that position, but they could be done horizontally as well. If they're horizontal, all bets are off on a lot of things that we've looked at and measured, including things like power lines. But we probably do need to remove a couple of power line, or at least one power line that's a little bit low, because the 9-meter Starship is huge. Biggest rocket that would ever go through the locks over at Florida. Anyways, this production is going to be massive. Like, this is the funniest part about comparison with the Florida site here, and this Mega Bay, it came from Roberts Road. Like, they were going to build it. They had the foundations just like this. They had the crane matting. They had the crane. In fact, it was this crane and this crane.
Both of those cranes came from Robert Road.
Yeah, we got everything. I almost swear that we got the same contractor building this up as well. That's like, they knew exactly what the plan was going to be, and they just shifted it over here instead of being over there. So that was a big, like, oh, so they did do that. And it was a question I had been asking for a little bit before they did it, which was like, could we move the Mega Bay over here? And they're not doing anything over there. And then they did. And it was probably pre-planned months in advance. So that's what they were going to do. But I just kind of picked up on the clues for it. And it's really fun. Like, predicting the future with SpaceX is really difficult. So it's always fun.
Yet we still try.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So quick update. Ship 28, sorry. I always get these backwards. 29's back over here. It's got its thrust section inside of high bay, whereas Ship 29 has its first flap. So that's pretty big news. This is a new flap system and how they install it. And so they've got the first one in there. The second one, if I recall correctly, it's just sitting right here. So it still has a ways to go before they, stick that one on. But yeah, it's pretty good news. Things are moving very rapidly. And I love these new scissor lifts. That is literally a scissor lift, a red scissor lift. Let me see if I've got a little bit better picture
I was going to say it's a
show that.
little hard to see that, my friend.
Yeah, it's like I can see it, but other people might not be able to. So let's do that. And voila, you can see it's now in daylight.
Wow, well done, sir.
But yeah, the thrust section again for 28 is ready to be stacked. It's like one of those things where we'll be talking in the middle of all this. We'll say, oh, by the way, Ship 28's finally been fully stacked. Oh, that is one of those things that go very quickly once they get these thrust sections in. Today's a Saturday. They do work Saturdays, but Sundays, everything kind of dies down. Nobody seems to be working except for security and a few other, like, hey, we're the prep team. We're getting everything ready for the weekend or installing new equipment, that kind of thing.
And some of the contractors, like I think the wide bay construction crew might be working tomorrow.
And did you see who's joined us in chat? Not in chat, sorry, in our Discord chat. The one and only, who's only here for a bit.
Oh my gosh, we've got Jax.
That's correct. Welcome, Jax.
Hey.
Glad to have you, Jax. What do we got?
What do we got? Just to be clear, you all hear me good, right? I'm not too quiet?
Nope,
No,
you're
you're
perfect.
Perfect. So, yeah, pretty busy week at the production site. Like you said, Ship 29's aft section is in the high bay now. That's outfitted with all of its plumbing distribution systems for the 6 Raptor engines. It's pretty good. They'll get that welded on, and once that's fully stacked, they can get it off of the welding turntable and get started on Ship 30. They've started staging items outside of the high bay already. They just moved the nose cone to the ring yard about 5 minutes ago or so. So that's good progress, right? The library, the buildup of ships that they have it's pretty impressive. In terms of the ring yard here, there's various parts of ship 31, 32, booster 15, 14, and it's just pretty interesting to watch. One of the components that's kind of been a bit confusing is this booster aft section towards the top of the ring yard. It came outside in a pretty incomplete state. And I know with Tent 3 seemingly spitting out all of the nose cones in it, some people have questioned whether or not SpaceX is maybe starting to slow down production in an effort to expand the factory, because they can keep building things, but it becomes harder and harder to switch over to the Star Factory when you have so many parts midway through production. So maybe not. Maybe they ditched this thing because they screwed up a weld. Maybe they decided to go with a new design, or maybe they put this thing on hold. It's hard to be sure, but there's been a handful of unfinished parts that have come outside, and even that upside down booster common dome that you guys talked about a couple minutes ago, with the E-dome inside of it by Tent 3. That dome is only tack welded into place. They have not done the final weld pass.
Oh wow!
So it's just kind of interesting to see that there are a lot of not developed parts coming outside out of nowhere. Yeah, and you can see Booster 12's common dome sitting outside of the Mega Bay, also with that E-dome.
I was just gonna ask that.
Another Booster 12 part right there, right?
Yeah, so they're preparing to set up to stack the liquid oxygen tank, which is pretty good. The super heavies are going to be important. I mean, we have Booster 9 that'll do Flight 2 coming up. 10's in the Rocket Garden now. 11 is probably going to be fully stacked with as early as now. They seem to have rigged it to be fully stacked this morning. So it's always good progress, right? They just need to test them. They need the OLM back online. They need wherever they're going to cryo test Booster 10 to come online.
Well, the most important thing you kind of started off with, which was, in order to speed up production, they're slowing down production. That's I guess the gist of it. Like Star Factory is expanding rapidly. They had to basically pop out all these rings out of the GSE area beforehand because they were expecting that they're still going to be building these parts and working on these parts but things are really weird on tent number 3. Do you think they're going to be tearing that one down? Because like all these rings are popping out, or not the rings, but the nose cones, naked nose cones. They're not supposed to be out yet.
Yeah, I suppose they could. We're gonna have to see kind of what happens over the next few days if they go back inside or if more stuff comes out. We've seen in the past they've pulled a bunch of things out just to move parts out that are like tucked in the corner of the tent. This could be a scenario like that, or it could be something completely different. It's hard to be certain. I mean, you have Ship 30's nose cone right there, which is in the ring yard now.
Is it nose cone 31 though? I can never remember these things.
Oh, that one would be nose cone 33.
33. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, 31 went in the cage, 32 went to Ship 29, and 33 would have been Ship 30.
That makes sense because I keep remember talking about 31, and that's why I probably brought this one up. It's just the wrong one. So 30 for the ship number. It's always weird is that they don't match. Nose cones are one of the longer lead times. I think it's just like the pucks themselves for the ships. So the thrust sections and the nose cones are going to be the more difficult parts, as well as the top of the forward dome of the booster. Super difficult. Takes a long time. How long is the current longest, or I'm sorry, the current shortest lead time that you know of for like these particular parts coming through?
The shortest lead time.
Yeah, that's always the interesting number. If it was especially if it's increasing or if it's decreasing as far as the rate of time. Finding the shortest one's always that's the minimum level, right? At least was.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there are components on the ships that are quite simple, like especially when you get into the oxygen tank. There are components where it's just straight tank wall, nothing really special going on. So probably the part
Pretty
of
much tank wall. There's nothing special. It's just got tank wall and stringers.
Yeah, those I remember when they were producing Booster 9, or was it Booster 10? It was one of those two. And they were they were manufacturing them as they were stacking them. So it would essentially go like straight from the Star Factory to the Mega Bay. And they'd build a new one when they needed it.
Having inventory is really nice because some of these parts are so common. It's like this one is the same as the next one and the one before it, that kind of thing. So that you can replace one of these that, let's say, is manufactured incorrectly to go send it back, fix those defects, and you have that supply or inventory, even if it's from another. It's supposed to be for, let's say, booster 14, but they use it for booster 13, for instance. Like that's going to be something that will probably happen and has happened with some of these vehicles over the past, is that they have at least some amount of inventory that they can pick from. And in this case, these are such common parts that works out. But yeah, getting back to that, I guess the Star Factory direction here. I always hit the wrong button there. So things are really kind of picking up for that direction. What kind of numbers do you expect the Star Factory is going to be, at least when they expand from here, pretty much all the way down to the end of Highway 4, basically about this point? What would you be expecting the rate to start off with and then be once they take over the tents?
Yeah, I mean it's interesting. It takes, from what I've seen, probably about half a year to produce a ship. If that, it might be more, it might be less. It's hard to be certain with that stuff because there are things manufactured offsite. But I think they'll definitely be able to speed it up, right? When it comes to just the sheer capacity of the building. And when you get into specialized tooling, you make things easier. Right now, I feel like one of the bigger annoyances is everything after stacking. The amount of time it takes to turn your tube into a rocket. And it takes up precious bay space. And that's kind of why they're building this second Mega Bay, because you still have Ship 28 in High Bay right now. It was stacked 2 months ago, and it's still being worked on the inside. And Yeah, that's what happens. Turns out rockets are pretty complicated. Who knew? But I'm sure that's something that they'll want to optimize, because they spent the last probably even for the last year or so optimizing the stacking methods, and they have a pretty good system right now. This top-down method of putting the tank sections on top of each other, they can move pretty fast. So
now there's a question, Jax. Would you have ever expected that method if you had thought about it before they did it?
I mean, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't have. It's the engineers at SpaceX. They're so incredibly skilled. I mean, you can think whatever you want about the company leadership, whatever, but there's no doubt that some of the engineers they have there are just they're incredible. Like they come up with some pretty interesting solutions, not only for the manufacturing process, but when it comes to simplifications of the design, when it comes to commonizations of parts. Especially with these more recent ships, they've been getting a lot more into that, making Super Heavy and the Starship Upper Stage more similar to each other, and that means you have less to manufacture, and less complexity. So you just that's why I follow the production of these vehicles, because it's just so kind of cool to watch. You can see their development process.
So there's
Dave,
a
do you
quick. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so on the same question that you asked, Dave, I remember talking with you back when High Bay was still being constructed, and we discussed this whole topic. We even started to see them put in, we call them, or at least I call them scaffold rings. There was just rings of scaffolding on the inside and outside. You could basically stack the booster or ship that way, so you could basically manually weld it. There was no turntables or anything like that. And we basically decided, well, that's actually a really useful method to stack from the top down for ships and boosters. And they didn't quite do that at first, but now that's pretty much the direction they've been going. So it's interesting is that you bring up that question, because we had talked about this ages ago when this was just like still in its infancy of a building. What was the next partying star that you were talking about?
So Lolo was just asking, Lolo Matica 3D was asking if we know what the corners are sitting in front of Wide Bay. Which ones are they? And that's for the new building.
Oh, okay, so you're talking about the these corners here. So I don't know what the second corner that came in, but this one should be this corner right here. That's kind of what fits the most, because I mean it's got that kind of backwards L shape that you're looking for. Um, it doesn't really fit here very well. You'd have to have the the long part flipped all over. It doesn't. Yeah, it just doesn't work. So this is this corner. The next one, Dave, were you able to tell which one that was?
Well, we can just go look at Sanchez and see.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. So which one is missing from Sanchez? Let me go.
Well, it's the one that's on the SPMTs.
That's right. Okay, let me jump back over there. And back to the start. Let's find the right image. Should be here. Okay. So that's the one with the SPMTs. That's that L shape. That's another back corner.
That's the other back corner.
So there's the answer.
So the other back corner is back left or back right when you're looking at the building?
Back left is this one. Back right is the one that they currently have.
Thank you.
This would be the, if you're looking at the building, back right is right here. So yeah, it's just both of the backs.
Which makes sense if you think about the crane operations. If you put the back ones in first, they're not, the front ones aren't in the way while you're trying to maneuver the back ones into place, and then once the back ones are in, it's easy to get the front two ones in.
Yeah. And then here's the funniest part about what you were talking about with the cranes is the LR1300 is here to do the smaller stuff. It's basically put in these parts like this one right here. It's just lifted that in and needs to do the next section in here, and then these little pieces in between. So basically they're just bolting them in very quickly, and that's a really cool part of the process. But then here's this guy, the LR 11000. it's the one that's supposed to be doing the corners. Like this one could do maybe the first corners, but this one is the one that's meant to do all the rest of it. And so it's like they need to swap places here pretty quick. So once we see the LR 11,000 trade places with the LR 1300, there's going to be a massive change in how tall this building is very quickly, because it's going to be stacking, and each corner they have to go through, connect the back side. So they're going to have to basically do it piecemeal. So they're going to take all these little parts like these, not specifically these, but like these, attach them together going this way. And so they'll have a bit of an inventory there. One thing we talked about was a question of this area. Maybe I need a better photo here of this. This probably has it. So this area right here has all of these little parts adding up. This, I was expecting that they would start building up the corner sections in here. Now I'm not so sure about that. This is very interesting that they've like leveled the soil, they've built it up. It's like supposed to hold some sort of structure. I'm probably thinking concrete will eventually be put here as well. Other people are looking at it going, yeah, there probably is going to be concrete, because they've done all the stabilization and everything else you do just before you do the rest of it. Just kind of like at the new Star Factory. So they stabilize the soil. They'll do all the rest of this. It's just a question of like, do we start to see these things appear? The vapor barrier, for instance. That's going to be the very telltale sign if you're going to be throwing down concrete and putting up either a building or just a large parking lot or something. But yeah, I would hope to see those corner sections come in here, but now it doesn't look like that's happening. It's all being done at Sanchez very quickly, very efficiently. There's a bit of room. Yes, you need to move the SPMTs around, but you'd have to still move an SPMT from here to here, or somewhere around where the crane can come pick it up, like this guy. What was your thoughts on this, Dave or Jax, before we lose you?
No, I was going to say, I think there's going to be a structure going back there, just the way they're doing the grade preparation. Could be something to keep our eye out for. The GSE building frame may getting trucked over there when they take pieces apart as they're disassembling it. That would be a good clue. Yeah, I don't think they need that space to build the frames. They look like they got that set up in Sanchez with more than enough space to do it and stay ahead of their fab rate. But I think we're going to see, 3 weeks from now, I think 3 to 4 weeks from now, I think the wide bay 2 is going to be pretty much up to the roof line.
Yeah, they're moving very quickly on this building. They want it fast. They organized it as far as all of the logistics extremely well. The one thing I'm still thinking about this as, if it's going to be the new ground fabrications building, two things that they need is room and the building itself. And I don't see the building pieces coming in here, and there's not a whole lot of room. I mean, the footprint is about right for that building, but it's just all wrong. It's really weird. Like there's no pieces being stored here, but I guess they might be being stored somewhere else. I just haven't found where they're putting all of this building material.
I think the lean-tos may have gotten scrapped. I'm just talking about the core building.
Oh, okay. So just this building part, or
Yep.
maybe this included?
Probably just the main rectangle.
Okay. And you said earlier today they were removing the roof off of this.
Yes. Yeah. If you look on Sentinel Cam right now, the Route 4 end of the roof is missing.
Now you got me getting ready to find the link for that. This will take a second. Unless somebody else wants to grab it for me.
What is it we're looking for?
Sentinel Cam.
Oh, sure. Hold on, please.
See who's faster here.
Well, you should continue the conversation.
I got it. Okay. So, yeah, Sentinel Cam, the whole side of the building's gone. Now, that's
and the first set of roof panels on the road end are missing. Yes, it's an open hole.
Wow.
And it looks like they've knocked off for the day. They had two man lifts and a teleloader up working on the roof, and like 5 people up there, and that broke at right about the time our stream started. So I think that phase of the operation's done, but they are certainly bringing it down, and they were taking the roof panels off neatly and stacking them on a teleloader and then bringing them to the ground. So it does look like they might be preserving this building a little more than the demolition style that they did on the engineering propulsion building in Low Bay, who just got scrap metaled.
Yeah, by the way, this view looks wrong right now. It's like Low Bay should be sitting right here, and yeah, they're right now scrapping that old production building. You can see
And
the
note
excavators.
the nose cone that's escaping between tent 1, 2, and 3.
Oh yeah, it's literally moving right now as we speak. I didn't even notice that it's moving so slow. Wow.
Yeah, yeah. Things are happening here.
Yeah, SpaceX is really pushing hard to make things happen at this build site and the launch site. It's just moving rapidly. They again, kind of going back to like the base of all of this. This is all to build the rocket. The grounds fabrication building, offices for logistics, low bay, which not much use out of these days except for prototyping, which is pretty big. So let me actually get to Jax again. Um, what's going on with low bay?
Well, the wind broke, and it's gone. So
Okay, and the mid bay, sorry.
yeah,
It broke wind. Ouch.
yeah. Sorry, I'm a bit tired, but mid bay, you have that nose cone, the the ship 22 nose cone. It was stacked with that inverted e-dome, the stretch form dome with the decagon cut out of it, which is that's a thing, I guess.
Yeah, it's a new thing. It's a very weird thing. A lot of us are thinking it's for HLS, so the Human Landing System for NASA. That's what literally is going to be putting the astronauts on the moon. Not this one. This is the prototype. If that's the theory, if it holds up to be true, so far it's just weird for sure.
Yeah.
Still trying to find the one perfect picture I have of in mid bay that Mauricio had so graciously fixed up for us, and I'm struggling to find it here.
Yeah, and while you do that, I guess.
Found it.
Okay, perfect. So this nose cone is, as I've beautifully worded in the past, it's a piece of garbage. This thing is, it can't be used for anything else, so I guess that's why they used it for this. And, hey, reusing parts, I like it. And in order to pretty it up a bit, they painted it, but they didn't paint it white like I think many people were thinking they could. They gave it the same paint job that Ship 24 had.
I would love to see if it was black and white. That would be kind of cool.
Give it the shuttle aesthetic.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the thing is this has heat shield tiles. HLS will not. So, I mean, what are they going to go through and do? Remove all the heat shield tiles just to make it look good? No, you just paint it and call it good after that. But they chose black paint. Nice straight lines here. And then this part is interesting because it's like you might paint this white or you just might leave it bare like 24, and you might put the US flag right there and then NASA as well. That would be really cool.
I think whatever it's for, this is just a cheap and easy way to make it look like it's not falling apart.
Well, do you remember the old white nose cone that they had staying out in front of Tent 1 all those years ago? Yeah. That one was a piece of junk. Literally, the 5-ring barrel section had blown over in the wind. So speaking of breaking wind, it broke in the wind, and the entire thing was crumpled at the bottom section, and they had to go through and reinforce it. It was never going to be a flight article, but people were saying, "Oh my gosh, they're stacking it with a nose cone." I'm like, "Oh my gosh, They're not going to seriously use this thing, are they? And no, they didn't. They just prototyped with it. And this is the same thing that's going on here. Is they're prototyping with old scrap hardware um, that they would normally not use. In this case, Ship 22 was the craziest one because it was an amalgamation of Ship 21, 22, and 23 with the chance of getting the boost or the RVAX and sea levels from Ship 20. Like, that's how much of a Franken rocket that was going to be, and it's still a Franken rocket. What's left of it? It's donated parts to Ship. What was it? 28. It's got the flaps from 22.
Yeah, both 28 and 29 are taking its flaps.
That's right.
It's quite something, but it lives on. You can't kill Ship 21, so.
I mean, it brings organ donation to a whole new level when ships are doing it.
Oof.
But yeah, this is just a really cool system to kind of think about. Pretty sure that the E-dome itself is facing down, and this is something that I heard as well. Maybe you've heard this, that the E-dome actually itself looks like it's sticking below the ring. So it's welded at the ring section, but it sticks down below the ring itself. Have you heard that as well?
I mean, it may very well be. I don't know for certain myself, but I believe it. Just given where it's welded inside of the ring. Yeah, it's definitely something. This is an interesting piece to follow because whatever you think it is, in the end, it's something new. It's something different to what's been produced before. So it's fun to watch nonetheless.
We have a question for Jax here from Gwen Ever. Have we seen any parts coming into the ring yard for thrust sections, etc., that show new modifications?
I can't say I've seen anything, but I guess when they're experimenting with new designs and development methods, oftentimes we don't even know what we're looking at when we see it. It's more of a retrospective thing when you say, "Oh, that's what that was." So I can't say I've seen anything major myself. Obviously, there are small revisions between each piece, but nothing groundbreaking I've seen. That was obviously for the ship's aft section or the booster's aft section of that. Yeah.
Yeah, there's this particular ring that came in that's got. We went through and looked at the holes, and there's 6 pairs of them, which was interesting. But these holes that you can see here are the ones that are open the rest of the way. What's really cool about this one is that the ring itself, it's full of them. It's got arcs of cutouts all over the place.
Yeah, that is a pretty interesting piece because there are quite a few cutouts in it. What it's for, I know there's been a ton of speculation about that. I'm not going to touch on that right now because that's going to take forever to get into. But whatever it is, once again, that's something completely new. It's 6 massive arches, each with I guess you could say crosses between them. Like it's not open holes. It's multiple smaller holes that make arches. Um, yeah, whatever it's for, it's going to be interesting. There are a lot of holes. Like keep that in mind. It is quite a lot. So I know, like, let's say one of the ideas was for Windows or something like that. This is a lot. Could it be? Sure, I can't reasonably say it isn't, because nobody knows for certain. But I mean, it's around the entire circumference and pretty massive cutouts. So
Yeah. Well, the first thing that comes to mind, you could say, it's got cutouts, but why did it have so many in so many different locations? So it looks like there's 6 arcs. You can see just 3 right here. And I don't know the number of cutouts, but at least the arcs here, at least 6. And the cool part is, like, it's maybe just prototyping to do cutouts on rings themselves. So they've got a system to do cuts. This is how they test it. And they might have something like this, just this one, but is interesting that they've done it on 6 sides. There's like the whole, hexagons or the bestagons routine that everybody talks about with SpaceX, and that's very true. They love their hexagons. In this case, it's not only just the cutouts in 6 different directions. It's like, what could it mean? Is it trying to lighten the loads, or is it trying to allow airflow through? If this is actually a prototype article for future starships or something along those lines, maybe even for the boosters, but I doubt that. Like the amount of structural reinforcement that you have increased for doing this, you've done this not to um, make it structurally better. You made it so that you're allowing, let's say, airflow. That was something that Zach had talked about. So Zach was saying that the idea would be, let's say, the engines for the RVACs, if these are located just right next to that, you now have a hot staging capability potentially. So the gases basically could escape from multiple directions, and this is one way to do it. And that was kind of like, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, that's one theory I've seen.
Yeah, and the hot staging only works if you're doing like an emergency abort, and it's like that's trying to be forward thinking on it, and not like oh yeah, we're gonna just let it build up pressure inside the ring, and if it blows out, who knows? Like they're taking precautions. Maybe that would be for like human rating this vehicle eventually for launches.
Yeah, and I mean, some people have asked, like, could this even just be like like a test ring for the robots and things like that? Yeah, it may very well be. This is one of those situations where you really don't know what you're looking at. I've never seen anything like this when they've commissioned things before, but that's not to say it can't be, or that they're just trying something new. These are cutouts. In the video on Rover 1 camera when it was going by, the light could be seen shining through the gaps. I don't. You can kind of see it in some of them here. But yeah, they aren't weld marks. They are laser cuts, and each of the little sheets in the middle is just being held on by a couple uncut tabs, I guess you could call them.
Yeah, I could see at least 4 tabs here. One at the top and one at the right, and then the bottom left, bottom right. So yeah, I could see that. It's very interesting. And you said we've never seen this before. We may never see anything like this again. That's the thing, especially if it's just a prototype, cut test. But yeah, that was just something that we wanted to kind of bring up while you were talking about that particular subject. Is that this is a very unusual ring. One of many unusual rings, honestly, but at least a lot of these other ones, there's a pattern. We understand it. Like, okay, we don't understand why there's no plumbing on this guy. It's just, it came out way too early. Same thing with the nose cone. So there's a common theme going on with this. And I actually even think this is part of that same theme. Like this was something that we were prototyping maybe in the tents or somewhere. I'm not sure where exactly this came from, but the idea is that the tents, they're kicking everything out. Maybe it's the GSE guys, they need a building. Maybe it's the plumbing people, they need a building, so they're filling them up in these tents. So they're basically sharing, and what doesn't need to be there is getting kicked out. So this guy doesn't need to be there, so they kicked it out. They'll bring it back in once they're ready to work on it. That might be their method to this particular madness here.
Yeah, whatever it is, whatever theory you're following, it'll be interesting. I know I'm not taking any stance. Honestly, I guess I'm just not too worried about what it is. It'll become clear in time. So
Yeah. It's always interesting is that SpaceX will always give you the answer, but not the answer you expect. or hope for. Oh, the windows are amazing. They're coming along very quickly on Megabay. We're gonna jump over here pretty soon over to the launch site. So get ready for that. And that that's done. So the lean-to is going bye-bye very quickly. And as we saw the other video from Lab Padre. This roof is going, the side's gone. It's amazing how fast this is all going. And what's funny is like I was predicting this weeks ago that they were going to be taking these buildings down based off of what I was seeing just with, why are they moving these shipping containers? That's odd. They're moving a few other things out over here. That's really odd. And eventually it came to be the point where, okay, they're expanding Star Factory, because we knew this, first expansion was going on, but the rest of it was very much like there's something there. So I even posted about it and created a little clip art that then got used in the video for Lab's video. I was like, oh wait, that wasn't supposed to be used in the video directly, but oh well, it was good. It had the outlines of the properties and parcels and other things. And there was something about Maria's, like they're going right up to her old property here. So this is part of Maria Pointer's old like house here, and this is the basically the large garage and shed area that Ray had built for them, and it's a really nice place. The engineers liked it when they took a look through. Let me jump through to let's say the end here, because I think we've already gone through some of these. We actually did get some cool shots from this side. I always like this side because you don't get this angle, especially this far back, that often. So thanks, Mauricio, for going out. Not quite to the mud. Well, you actually did go to the mud flats. Wow.
Somewhat. I went over to the new street over behind Weems Street to the north, public road.
Oh, yeah, okay, I see that now. I was thinking it was the mud flats, and that that makes a lot more sense. It's always really cool to see the back of the current Star Factory. So this is all the plumbing basically for your rainwater. So rainwater is going to go from this side to this side. That's just a quick note. By the way, do we have questions or donations that we should go through before we hit the launch site here in just a minute?
We have a couple of donations. Rocket Profit donated $10 and says, launch site train rollin'. John Dopker donated $10 and says, all aboard, y'all. And Jim Cavett donated $10 and says, I'm on board with y'all. And then we also have gift memberships. Rocket Profit donated 5 memberships, and they went to Igley, Chocolate Waffles, Brian L., Guillermo O., and Smashed Up Hair. Love that name, Smashed Up Hair. And then Chris Lyons also donated 5 memberships, and they went to Paul H., Henry R., You Are Amazing, another good name, Neo Dodo, and Chris L. Wow, Chris L gave it to Chris L. 2 different L's, though. And that's it for the donations.
Wow, thank you, everybody. And the coolest part about the donations is I haven't been able to go through all of the ground photos, obviously. Gone through a few of them. But the thing is, all levels get these particular ground photos. So all of the ground photos, like 400 of them. So you can basically go through, look for yourself, see what's interesting. Sometimes things are interesting to you that we haven't pointed out before. So it's always cool to just be able to see what's going on. And that is a huge benefit. Plus going through the show and tells, you can join us again live in Discord, especially the after show of what we're doing here today. It's always so much fun. So !, Discord for that link. If you already have it, just jump in and listen directly live.
And gift memberships last about a month, I believe.
Yeah, I think it's... Oh, wow. Jax, have a comment on this, by the way?
Yeah, so that is the LOX tank section for Ship 30. So you can see the top of where the lower flap goes, the aft flap. That's the top of it. So to give some kind of positional reference.
I'm just looking at the stickers. Those are the issue areas, I guess.
Could be. I'm not sure. It's the heat shield looks pretty clean, even if they are issue areas.
Well, they're QC, I guess, to say, oh, this tile has got an issue. Let's replace it. So they put a sticker on it, or 2 different colors for different color codes. Maybe like one is cracked, the other is pin issue or something like that. Or maybe they've QC'd it and they throw on a green. I don't know.
Yeah. But you can see the last few tiles are being glued up by the air cover on top, just around that top edge. they'll still have to do those, but that'll be ready for stacking whenever they need it. There's no doubt about that. Which is, yeah, I mean, the production efficiency, the parts are ready when they need them, which is pretty good because they were in a position where tank sections would sit around for months waiting for segments to be ready. But this new stacking method actually seems to be really lining up with the way they produce the sections. It's really impressive to see. They did a good job with that.
Yeah, it looks better on each ship. It's always getting better. So that iterative process where it loops back in and feeds back in the process is huge. Like the tiles look great. Each booster, each ship is getting better and better. And that's one of the coolest things about all of this. Most systems of production, they always start off with the we're designing this down to the last nut and bolt, and there's not going to be a lot of room for change because we're going to test everything, and it's all done in paper. And that's their iterative process is testing and iterating a little bit on the small part side. But when it all goes together and it doesn't work right, then they've got problems, and they have to spend months and years to address those things. But speaking of years, let's go ahead and address the launch site.
Did you want to go for questions?
Oh, I thought we already did. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you got
No,
distracted.
no, that's fine. We have questions, but at the launch site. So we'll start at the launch site. We'll review some of the stuff, and then I'll jump in with the questions here.
Okay, perfect.
One quick thing before you go to the launch site, Thomas, can you hit the corner of LBJ and Route 4?
All right, let
Village
me see.
area. Should have 1 or 2 pictures there.
Oh yeah, this is a big one. Train, right? That's obviously train tracks they're building here, made of wire, spooled up wire.
Yeah.
Just
So
teasing.
the high voltage wiring project that's been running between LBJ and the launch site is now heading back towards the tracking station, which is probably about where it's going to end. But they are out there working on it today, looking at some of the other cameras live. But yeah, that was the biggest change in this area. Getting to getting to the restaurant right now is a little difficult.
Oh, you can get to it. You just have to go the long way. I mean, there are obviously a lot of cars here. They got here somehow. So yeah, they had to go through this way in order to get here. And that's actually kind of incredible to look at is the amount of parking that they still have. And they'll still need more parking, especially in this area. Like this is already filled up. There is this spot, which is basically their shuttle area where they also do some other things. I think there's like some sort of way station right here. I think that's
I think that's also their facilities people have all that area there. So their water storage tankers live. It's where their street sweeper lives. It's all that type of infrastructure is concentrated over there.
Speaking of infrastructure, they're expanding the housing infrastructure up here like crazy. They're redoing all of this again. So there was weeds like this growing in all this area, but now they've adjusted all the land and soil. I think they're adding more soil and building it up. And this is going to be going pretty quick. There's also a road that's a paper road that goes this way, just straight on through, and they're going to basically connect to San Martin directly to it. So it's just expansion of homes everywhere. It's really cool. So SpaceX is moving that way. And thank you, Jax, for joining us as we move over to the launch site now.
Now we can go to the launch site. Yes, that was the big discovery last night. Was the trench team has been busy trenching.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. That was pretty nice. I know I'm not here for the whole stream, but I try to show up every once in a while at least. So
we appreciate that, Jax. Thank you.
Yeah, it's greatly appreciated. Your expertise in the build site is invaluable.
Everybody needs a ring watcher.
Well, thank you, and thank you to everybody for having me. And I will see you when I see you.
See you next time. It's always such refresh to have Jax in and discuss all of the ring topics. It's a little bit difficult without Jax there.
Yes, the ring watchers are a very detailed knowledge group about what's happening in the build site.
All right. Well, I'm hoping I'm crossing my fingers that we'll get a Stage Zero Zach here soon because we're at the launch site. We're going for it, and there's a lot to talk about here that's going on. I'm going to go from right to left. Still hoping for Zach as well. And the first thing I kind of noticed on this side, besides Ship 25 still being held by Marvin the LR 11,000. Is they kind of have a little bit more like road-based materials kind of coming in here. So I think they're wondering about starting to fill this area in for the rest of the way kind of soon. But it's just one of those projects that are probably semi on hold. But what was kind of really interesting is like the rest of the site, just overview. There's so much dirt on the concrete. It looks like it did, like 2 years ago, 3 years ago, where pretty much everything was just dirt. There was no concrete except for a little launching or landing pad here, little bit of concrete up here for the static fires for the test stand. That's kind of how it was. It's back to the old days in essence. It's rough and dirty, and there's a lot going on. But this is even more jam packed than ever before. I mean, like look at all these trucks and look at all these cars. I mean, parking again, it's an issue. I wonder why they're not using this parking lot nearly as much as they are. But yeah, this is all just so much going on. But yeah, let's go from right to left
so
again.
that parking lot, the old pad cam area, they had stored those temporarily stored all those little office blocks in there earlier in the week.
Okay, so maybe that's still
It was
closed off because of that.
yeah, yep. It was, well, I don't know if it is still closed off, but they had reserved that area because when they pulled those out, they stashed them over there.
Makes me wonder if there's something else coming in, and they're going to basically reserve this lot for a little while. That's maybe why they have the parking so sparse as it is. Maybe some tanks, or maybe it's just the crew for all the electric guys are going to come through and cut through this entire area. So parking's going to be very sparse here just because of that, because they're going to need to come over to probably about here anyways before they jump over. But they could do it from this side and hit it over from this way. They're moving quick on a lot of stuff. It's just incredible. Piles of dirt. Some of that is cleanouts for concrete right here. It's just a dirty job, but somebody's got to do it. Another micro reference. Speaking of which, the bathrooms are still just gone. I don't know where they've got their portable restrooms now. You can usually spot them, but I haven't seen them. I've just seen a couple of porta potties nearby, and that's been it. So there's, it's a rough work environment at the launch site. But yeah, let's kind of stick to the side before we go jumping over there. We still have a lot of pipes being welded over on this side. So this should be either for the new cryo that they're doing on the tank farm, replacing some lines that may have been broken during the launch. But another thing is that some of this can be for test stand A. So there might be a couple of things going on in the same place. It's all just pipes and welding, and it's going here, it's going there, it's just going everywhere. But yeah, test stand A is being retrofitted slowly to be like test stand B, which has been retrofitted with all these nice pieces of plumbing for collecting locks and engine shell. That basically is what it would be. So things are moving there pretty quickly. Speaking of moving pretty quickly, I'm going to head on back over here. We discussed last night the rebar, massive, thick, like 1.5, 1 3/4 inch rebar is all sitting here. Let me actually get a better photo for that, because we're zoomed out for the majority of this, but it's good to actually zoom into the images to see the real detail. Okay, I'm going to flip it around to the other side, and yeah, that is like spaghetti. It is just
very, very large spaghetti. That's inch to inch and a half diameter rebar.
yeah, it is everywhere. And this is probably for the orbital launch mount. Like uh, we were talking about this, and we were also talking about the additional rebar that's here, but this is all for this pad. These two pads right here for the new cryo tanks coming in. That one's a very interesting one, and we actually had a picture of that. If somebody wants to find that for me and send that in, of the new tank on the ship, that'd be appreciated because we're going to kind of be looking at that for a little bit. But the amount that they are putting in there, it's the continuous flight augering that they're using for this machine. And Dave, you're the one who filled me in on that one. That was a very interesting acronym, CFA. I'm like, you're talking about CFA all the time. It's continuous flight augering.
Yeah. So this is the same system they used over at Massey's, where it's a very long drill bit, goes the whole height of that mast basically, and they just drill it down into the ground, and they don't have to like lift up and pull the dirt out because the continuous drill bit keeps lifting the dirt all the way up to the ground. And then when it gets to the bottom of the hole, the center of the drill bit is a pipe. They start pumping concrete right down through the drill bit as they pull the drill bit out. So they backfill the hole with concrete all the way up to the earth level, to the grade level. And then they pick up a rebar cage and drop it into the wet concrete, right through the wet concrete, and vibrate it down into the concrete. And then they're done. Boom, one shot. So these things, I don't remember the counts I saw, but they were 15 or 18 piles drilled in one day this week. So this is a very quick process for smaller piles. If you notice where these guys are putting the cages together, the cages are like only a foot in diameter. So very different than the large auger piles that they have under the OLM.
Well, it's amazing that I was expecting this to be very much a how do I call it, like a continuous repeated pattern on the process, but it's very much like we need to hit this many here and this many over here, and so it's this interesting pattern or setup that this guy can go through and just park itself wherever it's going to be do the auger the hole, and it gets it done so quickly. That yeah, the normal system and normal method, it takes so much longer. This one's actually a bit easier because it's not like 6 foot diameter or 5 foot diameter holes like these would be for. And it's actually kind of
In fact,
interesting that these are
those
sitting
should
here.
be those should be the guide tubes they're taking out from underneath the OLM right now.
Yeah, which is kind of interesting. Some of these look a little bit shorter than I remember them coming in as, but the rest of it is about the right lengths. So I think they may have shortened them in places. I don't know why. But yeah, it's really cool that we've seen this. So they will basically pull these out typically when the concrete is still somewhat curing, so you can remove it and it's not a huge issue. But yeah, the processes of going on of concreting and digging, it's just constantly going on in this area. What's funny is that this entire pad right here, I thought, oh, you know what? They don't need to do all this. Like this pad is a landing pad that's probably about 3-4 feet thick in concrete, lots of rebar. It's just layer on top of layer. Um, and so it's just interesting that they're building all of this. But here's the other part that really kind of stands out this week. We can see that they're putting in the formwork for a what is this, sixth tank, basically right in here.
Yep.
And so it's got the retaining wall. So this will be a sixth methane tank. So I guess that will give them a little bit more residuals, so they don't have to basically go through and call in tankers every time they do a like unload and reprop of the vehicle the same day kind of thing. But there is that like 24-hour hold that they will do. That's just always kind of a weird thing, but I guess they'll do mostly that in the coming launches. Hopefully that will be reduced down to basically, yeah, we've got all the prop we need. The weirdest part about this is this retaining wall continues out past where it needs to be over here. This is a whole other purpose, but it's the same height.
Well, I'm thinking that's the beginning of a retaining wall that's going to go around the next piece of tank farm.
So I think they're going to have about the same height and it's just going to go out this way or something, or
something like that. Yeah.
Here we have a four-legged companion over at your side.
Yes.
And who do we have here today?
Callie wants to join the stream.
Yeah, my dogs will come in and start scratching my arm like, oh, you got to pay attention to me. This isn't as much fun. You got to come outside and play Frisbee and do a bunch of things. And I'm like, but I'm busy. So it's always fun to have the dogs around. But yeah, let's move on over. So we've got the launch table. There is a whole lot of coolness here. Okay, so we talked about the continuous flight augering. That is probably one of them right here.
Yeah, and there's another one in a really weird spot we found last night.
Where was that?
Dead center of the launch mount.
Dead center. Oh, that's right. There was two of them nearby, right?
Well, there was one right next to the big pile that's dead center.
See if I can get the right image here.
I think that's the right one.
Yeah, it's offset a little bit, so we're kind of, let's look at that tower. So we're kind of looking at it, from this direction.
Yeah, see if you can find the one that doesn't have that.
There it is. It's right there.
Yeah.
So again, there's that little one dead center, and there's the one next to it.
Yeah, and it's like why they have two next to each other, I have no clue.
Maybe there was an issue with this one, and they need a little bit more reinforcement.
That doesn't make any sense, Thomas.
I don't know. It's just weird.
I've got no clue. Like I say, I've got no clue why they would need the little one next to the big one, because the big one goes just as steep. So I don't know what they're doing. Anyway, that's one of the weird ones that we saw yesterday. They're busy putting the OLM back together. It looks like they have almost all the QDs, if not all the QDs, reinstalled. They've got working on the clamps, but it looks like they have the clamps not there, but actuators for the clamps may be what's getting installed.
I don't know what those are. It's just these aqua colored things, and there looks to be plates attached to them on the left and the right, which is weird because those should still be there. They shouldn't have taken them off. But yeah, the aqua colored parts, it's a little bit different. That's where the actuators should be. And then the rest of it, I think this photo's a little bit blurry than the last one on the same part. Yeah, that's perfect. So there is the holes for the clamps. The clamps are not installed yet, so they are redoing those, I suspect. They're probably going for higher loads or something, and maybe the hold down parts or the actuator part is going to be changed as well. But currently the way that it's built is it just grabs over the lip of the booster and holds it down really tight. It's got like an inch that it holds down on for the clamps for each part of these sections. There's 20 of those. And so it's just basically holding down to the ring that the outer 20 engines are connected to. But as far as I understand, that these currently cannot take the full liftoff force of the vehicle, even when it's weighted down. That the whole system basically will release automatically at that point, just one way or the other, it's going to release. But yeah, other things are kind of changing quickly here too. We've got holes popping up on the orbital launch mount, and these ones make sense. They're for like the alignment system. So I don't know why there's a second one right there. This one makes sense. So it would be all the hydraulics, and it would be protected. It'd go through that hole and be basically have its own little doghouse to protect it. Speaking of which, I'm wondering what they're going to do about this one here. If they're going to bring back the old doghouse or make a new one, they're going to have all that set up pretty quick and beforehand before they are done with all of this. Like, they've got plans on how it's supposed to be set up. Maybe they're we're waiting until it's done.
Well, and if you look here at the bottom of this image, the long arm excavator is busy putting large gravel to small rock down around all of those pilings, like they're getting ready to pour the slip layer of concrete to put forms in for the pile cap.
Yeah, sorry about that. My headset's dead at the moment. I'm trying to get a new one going here in just a moment.
So yeah, we've got a very interesting pattern of piles around the OLM. There have been some people that have been putting these together. They're not very uniform, and it's like 2 between every leg, and a couple of legs have 4 or 5 continuing on outside, which is inconsistent with other places. So there's got to be some grand plan, and I've seen a lot of people trying to figure out what the grand plan is, but I don't know that we're reading SpaceX's mind really well at this point.
Yeah, my thought on this is so far the grand plan, I guess, would be that it's part of the steel plates. The steel plates come out to about here. I think that's what's going on, and the manifolds will directly be, at least for the 3 of them, will be on the outside of that. It's really weird. Still, there's only 3 manifolds, so unless they've been storing them off in some warehouse this whole time, I still expect we only should have 3 of them.
Yeah, we still need 6 sets of plates either way.
Yeah. So the plates will basically, I think, all come out to these pads, and then it will just go inwards, which kind of makes sense. You don't want your steel plates just to end right at the legs. You want to extend it out a bit. There's plenty of flamey ends coming out this way, so you want to protect that. And they may even extend the plates beyond that, but there's no water with those plates potentially. But yeah, this is the weirdest side right here. It's like at least 6 of these piles. So there's like a triangle here.
There's 5 large ones, and then the one CFA pile further out. Yep.
Yeah.
And just so people get an idea, the hole that those piles are in right now is 15-ish feet below grade level. This is a deep excavation. It's hard to tell from the aerial photos, but if you look at those long arm excavators, that arm is going almost straight down into the hole on both sides. If you look at the one on the right, it's even more obvious that it's like vertically straight up and down in the hole, and not that far above ground on the cross arm. So that's a deep hole.
Yeah. One other thing I've been thinking about on like the reason why it's so deep, the columns themselves that they've got for the piles, is the water deluge pipes themselves. I think this is going to be about where the Y comes in, potentially based off of the way this is shaped, the size of it. It would kind of make sense to put it with the as far as support goes in an area like this. And then there's that piece that's the J piece that we've seen at Sanchez. It basically is going to angle off this way, and then it's going to do a 90-degree and then come in from this way. So I think that side is one of the sides. And then if you do every other one, it would be not this one, but this one. And it's, well, maybe a little bit different from that. I'd have to look at the top again. But yeah, it's weird because it doesn't fit with the, I guess, the narrative that these are specifically where the water goes in, unless it's uneven. That's where it gets really weird.
Yeah, like I say, I've seen lots of different 3D artists are busy trying to figure out how the pipes fit together and how it fits in, and everybody seems to come up with different answers, and everybody's raising questions, and it's a very interesting time.
Yeah. Especially the 3 thing. That's what I've started off with, like looking at going, there's no way there's 6 of these manifolds. There's only 3. The steel plates, there should be 6. Everybody's in agreement on that. It's just that was one of the weird ones that's like, there's not enough water flow. Is the thought that you'd have to have 6 and you want it to be even distribution. this isn't 39A. 39A has that. This one doesn't. So they're going to have to make do with what they've got. And one of the cool parts we kind of mention as well is, Dave, you pointed this out last night. So we've got the sheet piles right here. There's another one you can kind of see zigzag right there. Do you want to elaborate on why these are important?
Our discussion last night is everybody seems to be in somewhat of a consensus that they're putting the sheet piles in to protect the ends of the trenches that have the cryopipes in them, because they're basically having, well, if you look at that sheet pile right there, it's almost at ground level on the trench side, and you can see from the shadow it's a deep hole on the other side of that sheet pile. So they have dug down beneath the trench, and they don't want the dirt in the trench area or the trench itself to be collapsing. So they put sheet pile retaining walls in between the old infrastructure and this rebuild of everything.
Yeah, another way kind of look at it is that this, as you said, you don't want it to collapse. This is basically a pre-formed trench. It's got concrete, and if you start removing soil, it starts collapsing and falling out. It will basically put these pipes at risk. They would want to bend or crack because they're strained in those locations. So I'm going to go ahead and start off asking questions. Type exclamation mark questions to get those in right now, because we're down to the last 15 minutes here. So let's get those in, and I guess we could start asking if there's questions already on the docket, Mauricio.
Oh yeah, there's a couple of questions. So we have two from Donna North. Are there any plans to make CH4 N2 locks closer to the launch site?
Any closer to the launch site? Not that I'm aware of. There were plans. Those plans were abandoned in making sure the PEA went through. So originally they had the thought that they would like to put like a system in here for making their own locks and nitrogen and that kind of stuff. And then they built some bathrooms, and it was like, oh, that's the nitrogen locks plant. And it's like, no, those are bathrooms. It's got 2 doors. It was
And
really funny.
You can see the plumbing fixtures through the roof that wasn't on yet.
Yeah, exactly. It was a lot of fun how that was going down. But yeah, SpaceX was planning on like even an area in here at one point in the original plans in 2020 that there was going to be a LOX or maybe methane reconditioning. So they have that system basically here. So it doesn't really make sense at that point now to have that. You just do nitrogen and pump it over, and then you can recool your methane that way. That works. But yeah, the really interesting part is, I guess, taking it back to the build site, or really Sanchez.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I think the plants are going to be at Sanchez, and getting it from Sanchez to the launch site at this point is going to be tankered. Getting a pipeline in becomes permitting problems. It'll take some time.
In the long term, that's what they should be aiming for, is a pipeline for cryogenics, and it would have to be a double insulated vacuum pipeline. So you're talking about basically going from here and either through part of Sanchez or along this side of the road underneath the ground. Then you basically pop out this side. You could be above ground or just in a trench again, like what we have at the launch site, but it has to go along the roadway. This is the best side to do it on. And yeah, you just go all the way to the launch site, and that would be really nice. Here's the other side of it. I have to pull this up here and look it up real quick. But there is a nice system to be able to do this again at basically at the Port of Brownsville. So that's going to be what we should be looking for, is a nice like LNG system at the Port of Brownsville that basically could be run all the way through until here. So that's going to be the cool part. Let me see if I can get this real quick. I'm pushed to talk, so things are a little bit funny there. So, anyways, here's the location that they are building this at, and Maria Pointer's actually been going through and documenting this really well. So, I would suggest jumping on her Discord server if you haven't already. She's got a lot of pictures of this going on right now. So, this is the Texas LNG facility where it's going in. What my hope is that they basically bring it from here over to basically here in San Martin, and then down the road. You could basically go the other way around, but there's too many private parcels in here that you'd have to go through. So this would be the fastest, most direct route as far as property owners go. And you just go through here, and then if you've already got the LNG facility, or not LNG, but the cryogenics from here going up along Highway 4, you just put those along next to your current lines, maybe in a separate trench, but that's a lot cheaper to have two trenches next to each other than it is to be running the lines separately, let's say from the top end up there.
Well, as we've
Yeah.
seen from the electrical project, running a trench from the build site to the launch site is not a major effort for them.
No, it's not. In this case, you would want to do like preformed concrete trenches. It's just faster that way. You don't have to let things cure and wait. That's something you could do, but you don't have to. And then, yeah, you just bring it all the way up to here, and it's completely possible. So, for instance, one thing that this particular facility is looking at doing is eventually they will basically have a pipeline for LNG where you hook up out here somewhere. So it'd be out in the ocean, because that's one thing that they want to do is, instead of having these large tankers for LNG coming in and filling up over here, they're just sitting out over here somewhere, or maybe even down in this area or up here, depending on where you put the pipeline. Um, and probably keeping out of SpaceX's way at the same time. And then the coolest part is, if SpaceX can use that, and the tankers eventually, they will probably use those too, because they will need to fill up their rocket somehow. But I hope that answers your question. What other questions we have here?
All right. The other question was from Don Norris. There's no water sprayed up where the clamps are on the OLM?
Yeah, there's no water up there. Not yet, at least.
Yeah. Speaking of water and up there, go over to the 4-tank area and let's look at that pipe they've been welding.
Oh, yeah,
And
that's a lot of fun.
And this is not a good angle to look at it from. Let's find one that's a little more to the side.
Oh, this is completely fine. You can see that this is sticking up vertically, right? Okay, maybe now you can see it a little bit better.
Yeah, that's a better shot, weird. Tom. Thank you. So, they're building an interesting pipe angle here. We can't quite figure out where it's going to go, but it's going to go somewhere interesting.
It's not for the tank that doesn't exist yet. That I'm still hoping for a massive water tank up here sometime. But yeah, that's kind of indicating maybe something with the legs themselves. Like, you could stick up a pipe directly straight up.
Well, could this be a water supply up to the top of the OLM?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. It would be perfect for that. So we do have two pipes down here. They've been painted white, and they're working at going through and cleaning up the weld points that they're going to be working on here soon. So this side, they have the smaller pipe. This side's the larger pipe, and they basically run all the way over to here where they're working on these sides of the pipe. So they're really working fast and hard to make this happen. But yeah, the water system is going to be interesting, because we are having two more tanks come in here. I'm sorry, another quad of tanks. I think it could be 3, but it's probably 4. So there is a central part right here where it's ramped up just like this. So this is all one concrete pad with piles. So it's basically a cap for those as well. It's all connected together, and it connects from this side to this side. But what's interesting is that the center from here to the center of here, it's a bit larger than these ones. So we're looking at larger water tanks.
It's not just It's not just a bit larger; it's a bunch larger.
Yeah. Okay, so it's a lot larger. Yeah.
So 50% bigger, maybe.
Not quite that. Maybe 40% bigger, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's huge. So we're going to be looking at a pipe coming down this way, and we already have the. I have to go through and look at the other angle, but you can kind of see it here. Is that this is got the T's required, like this one. Instead of this is like the old pipe that they used, and this is the new pipe. But this one's got a smaller diameter. This one's a larger diameter. So it's kind of interesting is that they've got the pipes and plumbing a little bit almost backwards. It's like this is the larger pipe though. You're using the smaller tanks on the larger pipe. That's backwards. But anyways, they're going to be connecting them straight through large pipe to large pipe most likely, and this one should be the smaller pipe going about right here and then angling over and connecting into this guy. So there's going to be just a 90 over here and then probably about a 45-degree here.
Yep, should be a 45 to get it horizontal, and then a couple 90s to turn the corner. And hopefully somewhere there's a valve in all this, and then we got to start pumping water into those tanks somehow.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting. We already have a line. I need to look at the other side over here. But maybe on the ground shots, we can really see it. On these water tanks here, there are these on this side. Maybe there's some more on the other side. I can never quite ever find it if I ever look.
I don't think so. I think it was just one side, one end had them.
Okay. But we already have this pipe. It's a 2-foot diameter for these flanges. It's at Sanchez. It's the one that was painted white. So this is the water fill line. And then there's these top parts up here. You can kind of see those. They've got little flanges on them. Those are probably going to be hooked up directly to these tanks with a valve system again, so that they will pressurize from these high pressure gas cylinders directly to the tops of these tanks. It's not going to be the full pressure, probably. Like these are 300 bar. These tanks are not going to be able to handle that. But there's enough pressure behind there to keep movement going in these tanks. So you bring these up to what, maybe 20
30.
psi, 160 something. Who knows?
Oh, they could go higher than that. Those tanks were meant for. I'm guessing they'll probably go up to 10 bar, maybe.
These big ones?
Yeah.
Oh, 10 bar. Sorry.
Yeah, 10 bar. That's
Okay.
140 pounds.
Yeah, that's about right. So, I mean, there's going to be a lot of push from this. This is their pumps. You're not looking at moving mechanical parts. You're just opening up a valve. There's not a lot of things that can go wrong with the system. The valves are easy, simple systems. Motors, complicated, messy. A lot of power needs to be used, and this is still a site that doesn't have a lot of power, but now it's getting some. So eventually I hope they do have some water pumps, but it's going to be for that main tank that I'm hoping that they do. They always change their minds on things. So you see one idea that's like, oh, they're going to do this, and then they don't do it. Or at least they do it like years later down the road. So yeah, that's going to be a lot of fun. We've got a few minutes left. Any other questions to jump at?
All right, yeah, there was a question regarding the new tank that we delivered. I don't know if we've covered those images yet, but what is the tank going to be used for? Question from Neil Anderson.
So I think it's in the build site pictures here. Let me just double check it.
And
There
while
it
you
is.
do that, oh, you found it. Boy, you are quick
Yep.
today.
Yeah, I know where things are, sort of. So this is the new tank that's coming in. I only have this one picture. I thought you had some more, Mauricio.
Yeah, it should have been in there.
Yeah,
but
I guess I
that's
lost
fine.
those other ones, but this one's good. I know where this one's at. This is a large cryogenic tank. So the measurement that somebody gave was about 49 meters, which actually matches really well with the tanks that are here. So these tanks right here are 50 meters. So it's about the same size diameter, same size length. I almost think these are like exact copies of these ones. I don't know if it's going to be going over here. It could, so it might be harder to see. Let me try to get a better part of the screen because I just grabbed an image real fast there. They're much better. So this one, it's quite a bit lengthier than this one, but it doesn't quite fit if you're going to stick it right here, which that would have been a methane tank if it had gone here. So that other tank that's about the size, you said, Dave, that it came from China, then to Africa, and that's coming directly here as far as the
The
boat.
previous protocol call of the boat was in Africa. The call before that, from what I understand, was in China, so the tank could have been put on board at either.
Yeah, and most likely the ship outs also dropped off stuff in Africa or picked up stuff in Africa. So it's just different parts of the voyage and different cargoes that are going with that. But yeah, that's this ship, the United Heavy Lift. It's a big ship for just that one tank. I was hoping I'd see like 4 of them, and that would be a lot of fun. But there's, you said vertical tanks that are the ones that are coming through from
Kansas. Yep,
Kansas,
they started in
from Ohio.
They were last seen in Kansas, but started in Ohio. They're being transported down the freeway. Very large. They stop all traffic on a 3-lane each direction super highway. So
should have them in about a week or so.
Hopefully they're taking about a week to get halfway here.
Okay, that's about right. All right. Well, last questions and any other donations that we could go through for now?
Yeah, I'll jump in with the donations real fast. Sorry, Mauricio. 55 Chevy Guy donated $10 and says, thanks to Jax for the very interesting input. Paul Harvey donated £2. And then Chris Lyons donated another 5 memberships to 5 lucky recipients. Go ahead, Mauricio.
Yeah, the last question here is from Dennis. Will they have to wait 28 days for the concrete to cure before installing the water-cooled steel plates?
Dave, want to take that one?
I would say no. Concrete reaches 75 to 80% of its final strength in a week because they are not going to be subjecting the concrete pad to a launch within a week. They could start putting in the mountings for the plates and even the plates starting about a week after they pour the concrete, would be my guess.
And the other thing that to add to that is if they don't add any other additives for curing it. That's something that Philip gets talked about before.
Yeah, normal Portland concrete. Within a week, you can be working on it. You want about a month before you go to final strength, but that doesn't prevent you from doing a lot of your lower weight construction work on top of the slab, as long as you're not putting the ultimate load on it.
Quick follow-up question for you on that, Dave. Do you think they'll use just Portland cement, or do you think they'll use something special? Maybe not Fondag, but something closer to Fondag.
I think the pile cap will just be plain Portland cement. They will probably put something on top of that, but for the big structural stuff, probably just Portland cement.
Do you think they'll throw in a lot of binder into it to make sure that it all sticks together?
Yeah, they might. It might get either steel strand or fiberglass strands mixed in with it. Those are both common reinforcements. I know we did some stuff at work where they used, instead of putting mesh in the rebar mesh down for a driveway, they did a fiberglass reinforced concrete mix, which just had shreds of fiberglass fiber in the concrete mix, and that's an acceptable alternative to putting steel mesh before you pour the concrete.
That's interesting to think about, and I'm wondering if they would even use a combination of both, but most likely not. Any other questions that we've got to go through, or other donations, as I said?
There is one more donation. There's one more donation that came through from JK Video, $10. Thank you so much, JK Video. And that's it for the questions. I mean, we had a couple more, but I don't think we have time to cover them. It's already
3 minutes past.
Yeah, 3 minutes past. So
Well, we could continue the conversation in the green room. So all of those who have just received the Discord membership, or I'm sorry, the membership through YouTube, go ahead and jump onto Discord. !Discord gets you the link.
Actually,
you might
Thomas,
need to sign up.
Doesn't. It's
It
pinned
doesn't
to
give
the
you the
chat.
link?
No, it's pinned to the chat though. I have to
Okay,
do it
okay.
quickly.
We'll need to get that fixed then. If YouTube mods or Mauricio can add that into the Nightbot commands, that's a good one to have. All right. Well, with that, I will go ahead and wrap up on my end of the conversation. Thank you for having me and letting me run the show with the mouse again. That's been a lot of fun. And I'll hand it off to Dave.
And thank you, everybody, for coming along for our weekly summary. And hopefully we will have another clear day, maybe light overcast above 10,000 feet. So we got a beautiful shadow-free day for Mauricio to take photographs this coming week. And we'll do this all again in a week. And with that, I will pass it off to Mauricio.
All right, and before we end the show, I just want to make an announcement. We are looking for a backup editor for our 10 to 20-minute videos recaps that we're doing for the flyovers. And if you're interested in that, or if you've seen the past video and you see the what goes into those type of videos, and you're able to do that kind of stuff, please get back with us. It's a paid position for video editors. So. And other than that, I want to thank everybody for joining us today, and be on the lookout for that video we'll be putting out here, flyover recap, in the next couple of days, I believe. Right, Thomas? Sounds like it?
Yeah, should be out in a couple of days for the next video here. So it's basically covering the 20th, the 26th, and a little bit of June 2nd. So the stuff we've gone through here today. So there's some sneak peeks of that. We're trying to get faster, and that's part of getting some backup editors and things like that, so that we get these out quicker to you.
Yes, and if you're interested in that position, feel free to send me a message through Twitter or through Discord. And other than that, thank you so much for watching, and we'll catch you on next week.
And with that, we'll say main engine cut off, stage separation confirmed. Love ya. Bye.